Yeah, buddies, this is the Bennington Show. Beatle mentioned the only father-daughter radio in the history of radio. Shouldn't that be on some kind of a book or something like that? It's ridiculous. I'm Ron Bennington.
And I'm Gail Bennington.
Now, Gail, I'm going to ask you this right off the bat. Vito does his opening today. It's his salute to Fridays. I never considered weed a drug dealing operation.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
What do you just like a small business?
Moving a little weight, you know what I mean? Pushing it around. I always thought weed was too pussy to ever be an actual drug.
Yeah.
I don't mind even calling it dope. That doesn't bother me. Some people do that, old heads.
Yeah, but what does Johnny Law think? That's what matters.
Well, it's legal most places now, and if you got my eyesight, oh my God, I need it. Oh my God, I need it. And not to vape, please, okay? I want to get a little fucking enjoyable taste out of it as well.
I want flour. That's what they call a bud now, flour.
Well, it's not new, Chris. I don't know how to tell you that. Trees, it's all been around.
Trees was very big when I was in high school, and I just never got into it. No. I just didn't like it as a phrase.
Here's what happens.
It seemed forced.
Here's what happens. It starts as a joke between friends. Like, you want to smoke some doobage.
Right.
And then, yeah, I'll smoke some doobage with you. And then before you know it, everybody's saying doobage.
Where's the doobage? Dude.
Your fucking doobage is fucking shit.
This exact thing happened to me with reefer, and to this day I still smoke a little reefer. You know what I mean? And it was a joke thing that started when I was in high school, and then now it's what I call weed.
Yeah, believe me, I wish booger sugar never would have got going around, but it's stuck. You know what I mean? It was supposed to be like a fun little stupid thing to say. I'm going to say something, too, about Fridays, and anybody, I'll send any of you guys into the prize closet for it.
Oh, God.
Who fucking directed Friday? Earl.
F. Gary Gray.
What else has he done?
Training Day?
He did. No, that was
anti-food
porn. Yeah, all right, so you just lost your prize. I don't know why. It never even occurred to me. To me, it's like a reality show.
Yeah, and also it's comedic genius. You would assume that.
He also directed The Italian Job.
Nothing like Friday. That's a reboot, by the way. It's a remake. Negotiator, huh?
Straight Outta Compton?
Yeah.
Straight Outta Compton.
I did not see it.
Which is almost a prequel to Friday.
That's just racism. That's pure racism. You love Straight Outta Compton, Earl?
I have not seen it. I refuse to see it.
Why?
Just all of the inaccuracies.
Oh, yeah.
Here's the crazy part about F.
You're going to hate every movie because they all fucking lie.
F. Gary Gray was the cameraman of the interview that Dee Barnes did where she got beat up.
Really?
Which is even more incredible that here's the guy who basically saw what happened. He left that part out of the movie, Straight Outta Compton.
Well, let me just say this. We salute you today. I'm sorry. I never paid attention to who directed that film.
Look what I just saw, too. Felix Gary Gray also directed music videos Waterfalls, TLC.
Go chasing waterfalls.
Miss Jackson by Outkast. I'm sorry, Miss Jackson. Ooh. And Keep Their Heads Ringing, which I should have assumed because I'm almost positive that the VHS had Keep Your Heads Ringing on the actual VHS if you got Friday. A ring ding dong, a ring a ding 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 dong.
That's so fucking funny.
Nice career.
Yeah, nice career for yourself.
Nice career.
Oh, that could have been you. With a couple of moves. Oh, do you have a fantasy life that you think about? And it should be a non-sexual fantasy. I don't want to hear about you banging all the fucking Kardashian sisters at the same time and then making them make out with each other and worse. But do you ever in your mind, you're like, oh, this is going to be a film director or record producer or...
Record producer, definitely. Until I was head set on doing record production until I sat in a mixing session.
Yeah.
It is worse than death.
Yeah, it's tough.
It is so remarkably boring.
Yeah, it goes on for a long, long time, too.
I went to one, Vernon was doing the Ohimbi Brothers project.
Yeah.
They started at midnight. They were listening to the same song over and over and over. I fell asleep at 3 o'clock.
Yeah, they're like that. Like a lot of those guys, people don't realize they'll be like a couple of days working on the snare drum. Just, I don't know. Could we tighten the drum a little? Those are the wrong sticks. And you're just like, I thought we were going to come in here, fucking rock it out like fucking Johnny Cash and get out of here.
My wrists hurt.
Yeah.
That should be your fantasy life where you're just sitting around thinking about that. But when you think about producing a great record, you're just like, oh, magic, guys. Magic. We did it. Gail, do you have a fantasy life?
Yeah, I have very strange fantasies where it's not even something that I know I would want to do or that I'm hoping for. It's just my brain goes there. Like I have a weird deserted island fantasy that I do all the time where it's just like being fully alone and living off the land.
Wow.
And it's a really weird thing. And it's not even like...
don't either.
It's a fantasy.
Yeah.
I could do it.
Gail will call when she's walking the dog.
I'm alone out here. But it puts me to sleep at night.
I have one very, very similar where I was in a shipwreck, washed up on the beach, and I'm just laying on the dry land after being in water, and I can feel the sun on me, and I drift off to sleep.
That's very similar because that's like I mean, it's shipwrecked. It's not like I just show up at a deserted
Yeah, but I'm not
island,
alone on that island. There's other people, and I got to tell you, it's a majority of chicks. It has a lot to do.
Is it the Kardashians again?
No, it's Pitcairn's Island. What part of the trilogy of Mutiny on the Bounty, where they went, the pirates went and just found it. They took these girls from Tahiti and a couple of guys, found this island and fucking sank their boat and said, "This is it. This is the only way to stay." And it was off the maps and shit. And there, if you look, there's still people to this day related to them.
Weird.
On that island, yeah. And by the way, it wasn't a happy fucking situation once they got there because they were, crazy fucking limeys. Vito, do you have one? Let me guess. I think I know. You're in the park with your monkey. Money's coming in.
It was always being a bullpen catcher because...
What? You have a dream about being a catcher.
Bullpen catcher. Because you don't you get a long career out of it if you do a decent job. You don't have to worry about contract negotiations. You're traveling the country. You're on the team. You get a ring if they win a World Series. I just want to be a bullpen catcher.
I think you're the only one who's got a fantasy that you could easily get. What about you, Chris?
So I love science fiction as a kid.
I know that.
And I in high school I applied to MIT. I had like a dream of being a physicist that created something to help humanity, like cold fusion or
Good
whatever.
for you. Good for you. That's a good one.
Then I took physics in high school.
Oh, impossible.
I find it really interesting that all of you guys have job-related fantasies.
Mine is as well. Mine is, and it's part Chris's, but I'm not going to limit myself to some idiot who just comes up with cold fusion. I am, in my mind, I always think, who is the modern day Ben Franklin? You're inventing things, you're writing books that change people's lives, and then you're also, the president has called me, I'll negotiate a deal with Iraq, and I'm like, is anyone capable of that anymore?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
you don't have that guy.
Well, yeah, we're more of a specialized society, but Da Vinci and Ben Franklin were always my two favorite historical people because they did everything. And Da Vinci was the world's most famous paintings, and he's inventing war machines, things that couldn't even be worked out for 500 years later. But then he would come up with some really great outfits that we can wear for the party. And I've designed these fireworks. I think it's going to be really good.
It's going to make the party amazing.
So I'm always thinking, why isn't there a guy who is like a fucking senator, but then he's also like a fucking club DJ and he can go out and play festivals? It seems like two things that you could balance easy enough.
Right.
Where the guy was a doctor, a physicist, and he had a rock and roll band.
Oh, is that
Buckaroo Banzai?
That's it, yeah.
Buckaroo Banzai. That's the name of it. And Buckaroo Banzai was basically what if this happened? Of course, it's a ridiculous movie, but I'll still put it on just because he does all the different things.
The movie's amazing. They used to play it on a Comedy Central like early in the 90s constantly. I
They didn't have a lot of money then.
No.
They get a movie and they're like, this is our movie for a while. But by the way, Ben Franklin, in the middle of all this stuff that he was doing, was like this weird fucking old chick magnet. You know what I mean? Like he was, having kids out of fucking wedlock when that was just not done. Not done. And then, like one of the reasons why is like his wife wouldn't travel because he would go over to France and stuff from Philly. She's like, I'm not going to be on the open fucking sea for 5 weeks.
You die.
That's an insane thing that you're doing. What are you eating? Jerky for fucking, So anyway, that's it. I think you want to be that person that you think this would be the way to get the most out of life.
Yeah.
That there possibly is.
But it is interesting to me that all four of you guys, your fantasies involve work, like changing what your occupation is.
Well, you did take sex out of it.
Oh, right. And you're men, so it's sex and work.
So in that way, people always ask me about interviewing. I literally read a bunch about people before I interview them. And then I ask the questions that I have, not about the stuff that they have. I'm like, oh, I wonder how that happened.
Right.
I wonder how the stuff that they never talked about happened. And it is, the researching something is like a fucking great experience to have. Because you can throw yourself into it totally and then never think about it again.
Yeah, I do like that aspect of writing too, if you could like delve into specifics. And in a weird way, it's also like a procrastination, yet it's pushing you towards the goal. So like, for example, it's like, oh, you're supposed to do something in your house and you're like, I'm going to do my dishes because I really don't want to do that thing. And then at the end, you're like, well, at least I got my dishes done. Right. That's what research reminds me of, where like you could just go, well, I really need to know everything about this thing before I start working on it. So it was like this really, it was good for you, but it was like the best part of what you were doing.
Well, have you ever read a book where you saw someone go too deeply into their research? So they're writing like a fucking murder mystery, and then the next thing you know, they're just talking about this old factory and when it started. And you're just like, oh, I see. You did the work, so now you're fucking forcing it down my throat.
Yeah.
The history of the fountain pen suddenly pops up.
If you read Moby Dick, it's like very little action in there. It's like there's a lot of specifics.
Whaling and oil.
Yes,
I haven't read it since I was a kid. And I always think that why don't we do that? Why don't we go back and read the classics that they try to force on us?
I know.
I bet we would either love them or really loathe them now.
I did not read Moby Dick until I was like a senior in college. And I felt like, ooh, I'm glad this was now and not some earlier time in my life where I think this would have been just too hard for me to like delve into and appreciate.
Then there's other people like Hemingway or any of the pulp writers who write zero outside, and you're like, why Hemingway? Why didn't you just write a play? You know what I mean?
Right? Oh,
you're way more interesting than in conversation,
definitely,
than anything else. But obviously inner dialogue as well. But you would wonder how many of those guys would never even have thought of a novel if they're around now.
That was really why I liked playwriting. It's just that I liked conversation. But the idea of like, I don't know what everyone's going to look at. That's not my business. All the specifics of like, then you see his hand go into his pocket. What? That's silly.
But I when you read, I'm trying Elmore Leonard. You don't know if the guy's a black guy, whether he's tall or short,
you get
white
like
guy.
More like a feeling for like what's cool about him. Or something. Like you get a specific, like he wears this kind of hat and he likes this kind of cocktail.
Right. But what I hate is, and white writers will do this when they're writing those kind of books, when they meet a black guy and they're just trying to write it in some kind of ebonics. And you're like, why don't you just fucking write it? And the people in their head will decide the accent.
Yeah.
Yeah, they always drop vowels.
I don't like any phonetic accent writing, I think.
At all. It's really distracting.
There's it's like some Southern like classics, I feel like written like that. oh God, what was the Scottish movie that was Trainspotting?
Yeah.
If you read the book, it's all like phonetic, and you're like
I don't need that.
2 paragraphs in, you're like, I don't know if I could do this. It's hurting my head.
Just fucking write what they're saying. We'll put an accent on it.
I'll just watch the movie again.
Fucker. I was thinking about this too because lately Netflix is just coming out with so many fucking things that I start watching and then quit after 7 or 8 episodes. But when everyone talks about this golden age of TV, it's really bullshit because most of that fucking writing it gets tired very, very fast. And you could have taken The Godfather, had it run for 11 years, people would have probably made it a fucking top 10 show. It wouldn't have been as good as the movie.
Right. Yeah. That's true.
Fucking all the action everything, the arc of the story does not work over years. The only fucking reason to watch a TV show is like, I feel comfortable watching this dude. You know what I mean?
Just want to be in this guy's life.
I like the way this guy dresses and he's going around town and no one's being nice to him.
That's kind of how I felt about Mad Men. It was just like, I just wanted to spend time with Don Draper.
Yeah,
right.
That was it.
And see what he's up to today.
And that's when people would tell you, like, you got to watch Mad Men. And I tried it. I'm like, this is about nothing. I could walk down the hall and see these idiots. Why am I watching it? But you were right. People are like Don Draper.
I love Don Draper.
Yeah.
And I still love that show, and I'm not sure how much of that is true. And I still would say, like, oh, yeah, that was one of my favorite shows and one of my favorite viewing experiences.
But if you were talking about a movie, you could talk about the arc of the movie, the theme, but you can't really do that with a TV show.
Yeah, it's like because so many times season 3, they're like, now we're really going to have to shift things because we shook stuff up.
Yeah, so everything you liked about Don Draper is gone, and now he's 100%. A fucking weirdo. I put on this fucking show that I don't know what you guys called You.
I haven't seen it.
All right, so here's the story. I'm gonna tell you, I watched 25 minutes when I turned it off, so this is not a spoiler because it's a whole season. So a dude in New York, he works at a bookstore, and you could see fairly quickly he's a peculiar guy. Really cute young blonde comes in. She's looking for a book. He's helping her, and they flirt a little bit. They have a couple of moments. She pays by a credit card, and off she goes. He watches her go down the street. Then he, takes her name, looks her up online, and immediately, all her shit is open. So he's, what are you doing with that jerk? What are you doing with that? You know what I mean? Yeah. Suddenly, he could tell very, very quickly she's teaching at NYU as a student fucking teacher or fucking assistant. Here's where she works out. This is where she lives. This is her stuff. He starts to know a tremendous amount about her. And I'm like, I can't tell yet whether this is a rom-com or a scary stalker thing, but I'm queasy from it.
It sounds scary.
And yet, don't you think it's fairly normal?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's very common, and I think it's very common for young people who were growing up with the internet and young when they were introduced to social media, that internet stalking is just lightly accepted.
Yeah, I would say it's all there for you. You know what I mean? Like, this is not something, I don't know, hidden. And most people want followers, right? Isn't that the whole fucking point?
Yeah.
Yes.
Follow me, click, whatever it is.
Look at what I do.
Yeah.
Give me the likes. Give me those likes.
At a certain fucking point, you know what I mean? You could just say, well, you asked me to be a fan of your personal life.
Yes.
And I see that where you eat, and see, that's the kind of shit that he was figuring out and swinging by. And I'm like, oh, I got to turn this off. I don't fucking need to see this 2:00 in the morning. But then I got up today and I'm like, maybe I should watch a couple episodes.
Just see where it goes.
But I thought that the one thing that they had their finger on is like, this isn't science fiction. You know what I mean?
Yes, 100%. I know a lot of people who do it, particularly, I would say, people who are single, because it's very much like, oh, I just want to see if that person's single too. Oh, now I'm looking at where they went on vacation last summer, and things get out of hand, and suddenly you have access to a ton of information.
Well, over Christmas I watched friends of ours in Israel and in the Bahamas. You know what I mean? Like you in basically real time.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like where most of your friends are in real time. And I get it when you're on the road. Like when you watch Bobby Kelly, he doesn't like being alone, away from his family. So I'm working out, dude. Fuck it, I don't want to, but I'm going to. After this, I'll be at the cigar place called King Cigars. Everybody's talking about it, and then later there he is having a cigar. And you can pretty much follow him all you want. But what if I was a weirdo?
Right, 100%.
And here's the other thing. Let's suppose like you're watching one of our friends, and then they're with a friend of theirs, and then you're like, oh, there's the click there. And suddenly you're watching somebody you don't know.
Yep. Yes, you have access to tons of information.
Vito looks fucking
You're an
really
internet
guilty.
stalker.
Yeah, I've started on just an Instagram feed, and I've ended up on a mutual friend of a mutual friend of a mutual friend, and just been like, I don't even know how I got here. Like and
then you just put your dick back in your pants.
Yeah, then I just wipe to come off the screen.
Oh, Vito, that was more. I had it just that you were touching, lightly touching.
Just a graze. But have you ever, like, let's say a coworker, let's say you see someone, you're like, oh, she's cute. Oh, it's easy to find out what someone's name is at work. And then what? You would look them up?
Yeah, you look up their profile, see if it's private, see if it's not private, and then I don't go past that. I'm not going to add people I haven't had a conversation with.
But if it's not private, would you look around?
You look around, you see what's this person up to.
Have you ever become interested in somebody that way?
No, but I've been interested in somebody, looked at it, and then it gained the interest hyped up. Like I was like, oh, this person does like similar things to me.
Right.
See, that's where your imagination starts.
Yeah.
You're pretty
perfect for each other.
I'm pretty accepting. Like I know when somebody, because now like you meet somebody at a bar, you don't even exchange numbers. Most people exchange Instagrams now, and then you're just accepting of the fact, oh, like this person's going to get to know me kind of before I even talk to them.
Now, do you think they think that though? I mean, I wonder, would you want someone to have a background on you before you went out with them?
No.
Wouldn't you rather explain to them, what, where your parents live and how many brothers and sisters?
Or like, oh yeah, you see me in Mexico at spring break 7 years ago going wild with my girlfriends, and I'm not that person now. But but you can see those pictures, or you can go like, you could think something of me now that maybe you used to be able to just let go of that person as you grew.
Here's the thing. I told you yesterday, my brother's traveling through the Panama Canal, sent me some pictures. I would follow that along if he was an Instagram fucking, you know what I mean? But then eventually you are not in the Panama Canal and you're still looking at that person's pictures.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I've met people that went on literally like a world trip, but now they're not.
Right.
You know what I mean? Why are they still?
Right.
I'm like, no, still. All right, back there. They're not living on the beach anymore.
A lot of people stock up on photos from their trips. So like months later when they haven't been traveling, they could just throw other vacation photos out there.
That would be a dullard. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm
talking about following somebody in real time as they're traveling around the world. And, now they're back to their stupid fucking job. But for some reason, you still look every once like, oh, yeah. I don't know why. Start it. That could fucking happen.
Then you're like, oh, they did misspell your name at Starbucks. That's funny.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
It's good.
You're right. It's Friday. You're going to enjoy it. Going to enjoy this Friday. Anyway, that's, if you guys want to check out that show, I'm probably going to watch another episode or two. I got to watch all of Crashing this weekend. Already been having screening problems. I had 3 different fucking, I'm not going to get into it, but I can't stand that I have to fucking suddenly be an IT guy to watch the movie. I'm not trying to steal your fucking movie, dude. You asked me to watch it. It should be as simple as possible. That's just like if I go to a screening room, they ask for the phone, and they're putting it in these like little lock bags. I go, no,
I'm like, yes.
I'm not fucking going. I'm not a bootleg fucking person. You know what I mean?
And who's bootlegging on a cell phone? Like, I think they actually need an actual camera to get the bootleg.
I guess they can't have even a second of this go out is their fear, but I don't know if I've ever heard of anyone's
Like,
that was like the fucking early 2000s that you
Yeah.
could ruin something with a bootleg. Not now.
No.
who's going to be in a screening room with like other people in the industry just holding their iPhone up?
People do it at comedy clubs all the time.
It's just so crazy. I just don't know who does that anymore. I mean, I remember buying like VHS bootlegs in the fucking 90s, but
There are when I met Chris, he was totally the burner dude.
Constantly.
But they will. If you go into a comedy club, you'll see somebody like this, but just acting like they're looking around. I've seen people get busted as they're walking to the bathroom. They're just trying to shoot a couple seconds. And again,
Weird.
who fucking cares?
Yeah, I don't. And then what? Again, like we're saying, everything is for the likes and the clicks. You put this out there just so everyone's like, "Thanks for leaking this stuff."
Right.
You don't get any money for that.
No, none.
There's nothing comes to you except for just people like it or
And
spread
then-
around. You're like, yeah.
Yeah, and we talked about this with Louis C.K. Is like he's literally being judged on the fact that he's at this club working on material. It's not the thing to be reviewed. And, journalists used to do that, but just because somebody is at some of these sites doesn't mean that they're a journalist at all. All the rules are out the fucking window. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There is no standard to hold anyone to because people are more like, fuck the Washington Post and the New York Times. I don't want to be them anyway. I'd rather be a fucking dude that just posts shit that no one else has yet.
I see this all the time. It's just like a weird thing, and I can't believe how common this is. So you'll see somebody, and they're like, okay, so let's say like how the other week there was the explosion and the sky turned blue in New York City, and everyone's like, what the hell? So
saw
somebody gets a good video, right?
Yeah.
Then you see they put it up on Twitter. Then you see all the news places coming, their Twitter accounts saying, hey, can we use this footage? Hey, can we use this footage? Then when the person agrees, they say, how can we credit you? And then they're like, just use my Twitter handle. And I'm like, that is so strange to me. So you had the chance to say, like, first of all, you didn't even think to negotiate or
Right.
anything like that. You're like, yeah, sure, no problem, use it. And then it's like, do you want us to use your name to say, but they're like, no, get me more followers. That's all that really matters to me. And these are people who liked this news story. Why would they like the rest of your content? You just happen to be there in the right place at the right time.
I never found myself going, I wonder what else Chucklebutt 184 has besides being there at a fucking truck accident at 3 o'clock in the morning. I have seen friends of mine, their things blow up and go all over the place. Will Savence was the one who had that lady in Philly. Remember that was getting fucking crazy?
Absolutely.
And that was just Will just sitting there on the street, just shooting her. And then he, as the story blew up and people started to come, he's like, oh, no, I never wanted to hurt this woman. You know what I mean?
Right.
I was just putting this up for my friends. I didn't think it would go viral or care.
That happened with me with a picture of the Target opening.
Oh, I remember that.
That went.
Really?
You said like New York is done or something.
Yeah, and I think it was the Times, AMNY, a couple of news outlets. They were like, "Can we run this?" And I was like, I didn't think twice of it. I was like, yeah, sure, go ahead. Who do we credit to? I was like, whatever the Instagram page is.
Did you get more hits because of it? Did suddenly you
some?
Yeah.
But I mean, people who saw it. You know what I mean? Like but I didn't think twice of it. And then I thought about it. Wait, I'm in the New York Times.
It's fucking hilarious. Here's the thing about Earl. He's never even in his Instagram. It's always him aiming somewhere else.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
do you remember the picture of Chris Christie at a Springsteen show like drinking a box of M&Ms that went viral.
Yeah.
Roland took that picture.
Oh yeah, I do remember that now. Yeah. Well, what happened too is like they were always shooting Chris Christie doing like a weeble dance at these things, and then the thing for him is he's one of those guys that went to like 250 fucking Bruce shows, right? Bruce doesn't like him at all, or his politics, and Chris Christie doesn't get it. And I'm like, you're at 250 fucking Bruce shows. You don't listen to the lyrics at all? All right. What do we need to do, Chris?
We need to break right now.
Okay. I can do that as easy as anybody.
Great.
I'm at the Cellar tonight, and I think tomorrow night. And then Sunday, I'm watching the Eagles game, which, just Gail's the only one who fucking cares in this whole fucking group.
Sorry.
I care.
Yeah, but you're not a better, are you?
I'm not.
You're not a good. These two guys, I mean, they understand the line and the shifting of the line. Chris was down there the other day just checking on the turf before he puts his bet in.
I gotta know.
Yeah. All right. Right back, Bennington. Beep, beep, beep. Yeah. Bennington Show. On a Friday.
Getting down on Friday.
That girl's so good.
So good.
Yeah.
Where is she now?
Oh, I think she died in a car accident.
No!
Yeah, but I better go to Snopes to find out.
Rebecca Black. No, Rebecca Black.
That's horrifying. She was the, I believe, Fiji water girl of her time.
With more talent.
Yeah. By the way, I heard that girl died in a plane crash.
No, it's too soon.
Yeah, the internet gives me all the unfucking qualified information that I need.
You know what the internet gives me? All the feels. You know what I mean? All the feels.
All of them?
It gives me hopies for the future,
I like noms.
Yeah. My new thing is that if I like somebody, so I'll be like, Amy Schumer is my spirit vegetable. And then just wait for the laughs. Instead of spirit animal.
So vegan.
There are some people that just crush it on the internet. It's so great.
It's like sometimes someone just wins the internet for the day.
Other times they break it.
I like when they absolutely shut down the haters.
Oh my God, I loves me some shutting down of the haters.
Gots to get me some shutdown. Earl, what's the story with Black Twitter? Is that still going on or it's not?
There's still a Black Twitter.
All right, good. That makes me feels,
Black
Makes me
Twitter.
totally
They
feels.
call me Black Twitter.
All right, there's that article that was out. It's the iBang has a link to it, but basically millennial burnout, that the millennials can't do everything. And I think it's because they're the first generation that had to totally put up with social media for years on end.
Yeah, I went through and read this article. I felt exhausted reading it, to be honest. And the amount of things I could relate to was very upsetting. And I was like, well, this must be a real thing.
Give me a couple then.
For example, there's this idea of the tasks that you have to do are so overwhelming and so there's so many of them that you find just a simple task like, hey, call your dentist and make an appointment. And 3 months later, you're staring at that on your to-do list like, I just don't have the time.
Why doesn't anybody have the time?
There's too many things to do.
Yeah.
There's too much open communication happening with you and the world. There's very little alone time, and that even includes when you're alone.
Right.
The work day is very extended. It does not live in a little box. You don't go, this is my workplace, and when I go there, I work.
That's the funny thing is, like, we always laugh at people here that they're never here, but they're always doing something work related wherever they are. So, like, why? Like, you're on a blade, and everyone's just like, and you're like, we're all, this should be the fucking plane time,
Right.
the train time, the car time. These are times that you fucking rock. You know what I mean? These are the times that you find a singer-songwriter for yourself.
Also, a commute. Looking at how many people are working on their laptops, on their iPhone, on their iPad, just going, responding to emails. After I read this article, I started to just pay attention to that.
Yes, it's
and the
everybody.
other day, I was sitting there with a woman who was like writing a furious work text and saying like, I don't know why this hasn't been done. We've been working on this for weeks. I will look into that. And I'm like, it's 7 p.m. She should be just relaxing right now.
I know. But it's also really funny is like you'll be at your home and you'll get a call from someone in their car and they're just like at 100 and it's like, talk to Jim and he's getting in touch with Roland. We're finding out if the underground. I'm like, fucking relax, Chris.
You're millennial burnt out, dude.
I want you to have
is.
as many details as I could give you.
Well, first of all, here's why Chris is a millennial burnout. Not only is he like crazy about his work, but then he gets crazy involved in other people's work. And when I was having a conversation with fucking Earl, Chris just comes diving in and starts trying to yell out all of Earl's stuff. And I'm like, what are you doing, dude? This doesn't fucking concern you.
It's one thing to have an ulcer because of your lack of accomplishments at work, but an ulcer for each of your other coworkers, not worth
Earl
it.
had it handled. He had it. But Chris said, I thought he needed help. And I'm like, this is always the funny thing about Chris. He would never start that conversation with me. But if he sees me having a conversation with someone else, he comes roaring in to take it over. Millennial burnout.
I like the idea of you having just like a life preserver and just throwing it and knocking someone else out with it. That's what it feels like.
That's a fucking great example. Look, Chris, I get it. I'm a 90s kid. You know, what can I tell you?
90s bitch right there. We're not used to that.
You also see people working constantly on elevators in this building where people are on their laptops where there's no service.
I'm going to fucking tell you something right now. He's just on an elevator with a loud, heavily talking German. He's fucking talking in German really loud the whole time up. And I'm going for his fucking arm to shake him. And I'm like, this is only going to last a couple seconds. But I want to fucking kill him now. Not just for myself, but for 6 million other reasons, too.
Of course.
That suddenly that got into my head.
And you know what? That's their cross to bear because anything in German sounds aggressive.
It was aggressive and it was organized in a way that I think is frightening.
And because he was like a young, upwardly mobile professional, it really just came off as Hitler Youth.
Awful.
It really did.
So give us something else that's on that list.
I think also the idea that you cannot take sick days or vacation days because of the way that makes you look at work. So a young person will go to the office with the flu, infect everyone because they're more afraid of taking that day off and looking like a slacker.
There's it's so funny you said that because I know that there's another story up on the Bang that says, hey, America, take more sick days. Because now, how many times have I put our guys in the glass room?
Yes.
And said, just stay away. And they're like, I wanted to come in. I don't want to let What do you mean you want to let the show down? You're trying to kill us. Just fucking stay home. No one here, including me, matters. It's a fucking radio show. You know what I mean? I've done a million of these. No one fucking cares. It's just a radio show. That's it. Now, I remember having this thing with Chris when you were pregnant and you weren't telling anybody yet because it was early pregnancy. I go, Chris, I don't want you to come in when you're sick. And he's like, I definitely won't come in tomorrow if I'm sick. And this is after I make him stay in the glass booth. Then he comes in the next day and he's fucking even sicker. And I'm like, Chris, I don't want Gail to catch. I don't want you to catch it. I don't want Gail to catch it. Like, he's driving me nuts. What are you worried about?
I don't know.
I know what you're worried about.
Yeah, what's that?
Everything will go fine. That's your biggest fucking concern.
That could actually be part of millennial burnout. Not just that things will fall apart, but that things will work without you. And job security is a big part of it.
It's because no one is needed in any job.
Yeah.
No one is needed anywhere.
And millennials are becoming not the youngest people in the workworkforce very soon. So that then
I like
you start
this new crew better.
That's when you start to feel like there's someone younger than me, someone
Prettier.
who can do it for less, or who's willing to do it for less money than me.
Twice the energy and zero social life.
Yeah.
Because these fucking kids coming in now, they have no idea that partying and sex and all is good. You know what I mean? Like all this shit that my entire generation said, I'm going to work only so I can do these other things. Right? That's why we worked. So, but they work for some kind of other fucking brainwashed thing that they think they're going to move up in a corporation or something stupid.
Right.
They're not.
No.
And in the meantime, they have fucking not paid any attention to their youth at all. And think any kind of sexual interaction is somehow bad for their career.
You know what I'm predicting? That generation is going to be impossible when they hit middle age, because they'll have that midlife crisis that's going to be like, I didn't even have a youth. And then they're going to freak out and they're going to be the worst.
Dude, I know guys my age that are going, should I do acid? And I go, oh, God, you asked yourself that question way too late. The answer is yes.
But not now.
But not fucking now. And then here's the other thing, too. They think, like, they'll go to Tahiti, but they're still working. They're not even in Tahiti.
Yeah.
The whole world is just so fucked up.
I'm going to add one to this millennial burnout. Now, the millennials, particularly the elderly millennials like me and Chris, are of family age. And so the pressure now of the idea of maternity leave, leaving because you have to go pick your kid up from daycare, all that kind of stuff is guilt.
You're talking as a woman.
Yes.
Men feel zero of this guilt. You know what I mean? Men, all you got to look at is Sam from Jim and Sam.
Here the day his baby was born.
Dude, he was at some fucking wrestling event on the other side of the country 2 days later. You know what I mean? That is something. You know how people say, like, in corporate, like the corporate bosses, they'll be like, well, I don't want to move her up because she'll have a baby and that will become her focus. And then everybody's really mad about, how dare you say that? The fucking fact is, it's true. Men don't understand it at all because they don't give a fuck.
Right. But that's why in certain European countries, their leave is actually mandatory because they want men to take their paternity leave just like women take their maternity leave, because it evens the field, and then it also creates a better generation of kids who got to be with their moms and dads.
Sure. If that dad's home, he's drinking beer, he's fucking checking out his fantasy sports. You know what I mean? Like, soccer. Let's never for a second believe that men are good at parenthood. You know what I mean? Like, if you really wanted to bring down Harvey Weinstein, look at the way he was around his kids. I don't know. Here's a car. That's what, you know what I mean? Daddy's working right now, and I just fucking gave you a car, so leave me alone. I guarantee you that of all this shit that Harvey Weinstein has done, parenthood is the worst of it all.
Right.
And his kids probably look up to him instead of their mom.
Here's another one. A lot of millennials at some point spent some time on unemployment or had to take a job that was less than their previous job. So there's always this fear of, like, I could go back to that place at any moment.
Can I tell you something? Me and your mom went on unemployment, fucking had our apartment, partied, never saw another person, stayed up all night, and we pushed that as long as we could. It was before you were born. And we fucking loved it. And when all of our employment benefits plus the fucking extensions that we got, when it was all over and we literally had to go to work, we fucking cried. And we said our life is over starting tomorrow. This is the worst fucking thing ever. We loved unemployment. I used to work in a factory where the whole factory would be laid off and we'd be at the unemployment office fucking having fun. Guys would be shooting fucking crap in the thing. You know what I mean? We'd be outside of the unemployment. Everyone you know from your town was there. It was fantastic. This fucking thing about it's because they want their life to be some kind of corporate fucking miracle but you're just setting yourself up to like, you're working now for your jet skis. You're working for your
Right.
have a little fucking fun, you idiots. Have some fun with your life.
Yeah.
You're going to die. You're going to fucking die, dude. Have a little fun while you're here.
I think there's also just like a lot of expectations on the generation, and they already feel like they've fallen short. And so there's probably just emotional pressure that it's like, I never did the stuff that I thought that I was supposed to do.
Why? Who put this in everyone's fucking mind? Is it the school system?
I think schools, parents, most adults, there was like, this idea of like reach your full potential, and that's a totally positive message, and yet it crippled a generation.
Guess what? There's other potentials in life, like having fucking fun with your friends. You know what I mean? Like enjoying art. Mm-hmm. How many parents say to their children, I want you to enjoy and understand literature and film and theater and poetry?
And my father was like, create something. He's like, make something.
Your dad's so great.
He looked at him and he said, go start a business.
Go start a business. But there's a guy, his fucking new thing is called Stay Hungry. How about you fucking eat now, dude? You've traveled to fucking everywhere. You've sold out places. What are you so hungry about? What is the point then to get to that point and not enjoy yourself?
Fill up your belly and enjoy.
Yeah. Get a dad bod going. Get yourself a dad bod. Stop it. And stop judging everyone around you because they're jocking. Craziness. We live in a fucking crazy world.
We really do.
I wish Trump would fucking build a wall around all of us so each person is stuck inside.
A wall, you say? It's not a bad idea.
A concrete, thick wall.
But it has to be see-through, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, we can make that concrete wall out of steel slats. There's no reason we can't. And it could be fucking short. Like, it could only be like a foot high. This thing's going to turn into a shrubbery.
That's a great idea. Just a thick hedge.
I hate to go through a hedge. I don't care what anybody says. It itches.
It hurts.
It's just full of just a thorny bush.
Don't we all wish that we were raised by Earl's dad?
I do.
Yeah. Definitely. Hell yeah.
Yeah, he was. It's not anymore.
Sorry to hear.
Rest in piss.
No.
Chris never forgets that fucking weird. I mean, this is one obscure English fucking internet troll who would write to people when someone in their family died, rest in piss. I mean, this story is nothing. Zero.
Old.
And it happened 5, 6, 7 years ago. And Chris brings it up once a day. He loves this awful man.
They put him away, too. They put him in prison.
Yeah, that's because
How much time did he get for rest and piss, I wonder?
I think like 6, 7 months just for constantly saying rest in piss to dead people.
Over there, you know what I mean? They don't have the freedom of speech to troll that we do. Same with Canada.
Yeah, they hate trolls.
Yeah, they do. I don't get why this fucking internet thing ever took off, tell you the truth. It just seems dumb.
Now we're paying for it. It stresses us out just as much as anything else.
Do you think the next generation will be able to handle the internet better, that they'll be able to see, let's say your baby, will see the trials and tribulations that and just think to themselves, oh, they were stupid about the internet.
Yeah, I think that ours is like an awkward adjustment to figuring out. We're like the guinea pigs.
Pioneers. Pioneers, you're going to get the arrows in your back.
And I think even that's why it's a very strange generation, because I think there's a gap even within it. Whereas I feel like, let's say me and Chris have a very different feeling about the internet and the way we use it than Vito, because he never not had it. Where me and Chris had to adjust it and be like, hey, this is an internet thing we have.
I will not say that Vito handles the internet well. Fez Whatley will forever hate him and does and writes to me. Like when Fez writes to me about one thing, he'll also say, and that reminds me of when Vito, and I'll go back. I'll fucking out Fez because he don't care. You know what I mean? And I'll show you just last fucking week. That reminds me when that prick Vito said, and he was comparing Vito to Kevin Hart.
Take the hate out of your heart, Fezzy.
Fezzy tried to come in and get some information out of me this week because he has a friend who deals in PR work. It was our friend, but now I guess it's just Fez, you know? And PR work for the Oscar campaigns, right? Mm-hmm. And he wanted to know why this Unmasked that we have that's running today didn't run when we said it was going to run, and now is running how much shorter?
It's running 11 minutes shorter.
11 minutes shorter. And I said, well, some stuff. What exactly did he say that had to be taken out? And this is why, like, all of us, all the time, have to look, because obviously Michael probably has, a little skin in the game. This would, maybe he has a client running against him. I don't know. But I wrote back to Fez, what? Some shit he said. I'm not giving you specifics. But, that's also the weird thing is that when people worry, like about their personal brand, even when they don't have a business in it, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, what the fuck is wrong with everybody?
Yeah, the personal brand is another thing that they list on the millennial exhaustion and burnout. Is that this idea that you yourself have to be, a walking corporation. You have to be selling yourself at any given point.
Well, what is that stupid thing that everybody puts their resume on?
LinkedIn.
I get so many requests for that by people that I'm not even in the same business, like friends I know, and they're like, somebody's asked you, I've never once signed up for LinkedIn, and I constantly get, you would like to be their LinkedIn friend, and I'm like, what could I say about them? I don't know what they really do. I'm not going to give you a good fucking review for your personal life. How about this? Is annoying. Can't take no for an answer. Has a wife that's overly flirtatious. How's that? Oh. When she drinks. Only when she drinks.
You're hired.
Well, people are doing that even when they have a nice fucking job going.
Yeah.
They got their resume out there. I don't know how I'd feel if I was the boss.
Yeah, if you're the boss, are you going to go like, what do you need a LinkedIn for?
Where are you going?
Aren't you happy here?
Chris, you have a LinkedIn?
I don't believe I have a LinkedIn.
Do you have a personal brand?
I don't have a personal brand.
You do?
Yes, you do.
Oh.
Chaos.
Oh, well, that's good.
Chaos reigns.
All right, that's good in the 20s.
What do you think his personal brand is?
I feel like, he's smoking with Chris. Go, bro. I mean, that was a personal brand. Like, and that's still...
Well, his gaslight thing is really, that's the real Chris. This is his day job. But his master is gaslight.
I feel like, unfortunately, they're the same. His profesh and, his personal...
Are the same.
Are the same.
What would you say Vito's personal brand is?
Guess I'm a homophobe now.
Not now, you were.
No, no. I'm a reformed homophobe.
No, you're a caught homophobe.
No, reformed. I did it once. Or maybe I did it like
no,
three.
You did it. You did it a lot of times.
Not a lot. I saw what I did. I did like 3, 4.
No, I can have it sent to you because fucking Fez went and what do you call it? Copied it.
Screen capture.
Thank you. I don't know all them fucking talk, Earl. You and your dad do. So, I mean, you're joking about homophobia, but what would you say is your real personal brand?
I don't know. I don't think I really have one. I think I'm just a dumb young millennial.
You're being hard on yourself.
Come on.
No, I really do. I mean, the decisions I make are pretty fucking dumb.
What, joining the mafia at a young age? I think you're going to get your button.
Yeah, you're Italian.
Before you know it.
Yeah, criminal. That's your person.
Yeah.
You're a fun,
extortion,
lovable, heavy-set Italian. I mean, that's a brand.
I like that brand.
Wine, everybody.
Like an offensive corporate mascot.
I don't know what that means. Corporate mascot.
Like if I was attached to a Papa John's, you'd probably be like, that's a little stereotypical.
Oh boy, did he go a long way with that, huh?
And he's a racist, Papa John. Why would you bring him into this?
Yeah,
No, fuck.
because is Papa John even Italian?
I think so. I think his last name's like Giordano or something. So I'd
Okay,
assume-
good for you then. Good for you.
No, that's my aunt's last name. I take that back. I don't know why.
You know what? You're right.
It's your
You're a
aunt.
dumb millennial and you make bad decisions.
Now Earl definitely has a brand because he has like a
Black.
uniform.
Yeah, black.
The black color of the uniform is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I kind of like the color.
Yeah. But why, Earl? Why is that just you? Like a Greek funeral every time I see it.
Do you just feel like a little black rain cloud, like a Eeyore just walking through the
No,
world?
I'm just very comfortable with the color, and it seems to.
I don't even think officially it is a color. I think black is considered a lack of color. Black
Yeah.
and white. Both. So, I'm attacking myself and my people. Earl. What if you just spent the next 3 months just wearing white wherever you went? What's your fucking hero's name that wears white everywhere?
NWK.
Looks like he's hitting to paint a house and not do a fucking concert.
You have to be so clean to wear white every day.
White linen.
Yeah, I am awful in white too because especially I soil that thing so fast.
I mean, poop?
No, this
Sheds himself.
just around the
The
neck.
asshole.
You rub
Yeah.
poop on your
No.
neck.
It's a lot of backup.
That would be cool though.
What,
Maybe
just
you
have-
could do like the month of February all in white.
Would you want to
Perfect
do
month,
that
please.
for
I think
White
that would-
History Month?
That would kind of contradict Black History Month in a little bit.
No, I think it would accentuate it.
How about all through February you give us a Black History fact? Because they used to do that on ABC.
Yeah, they
used
did
to
that. A couple of networks would do it. The local stations would
I
do
would
it.
love it.
No, I'm talking nationally. I'm talking national. Like, what is what's your happiest Black History moment?
Top of my head, Smith and Carlos on winning the Olympic gold.
Jesus, I thought you'd be ashamed about that.
I thought you'd say the
They
slaves
took
got
their
freed.
fucking shoes off, put their fucking a black glove in the air.
That was a big moment.
That was literally the first. And look how it changed everything. After 50 years, everything's great between whites and blacks. Thank you,
Did
Smith
everything.
and Carlos.
Great work.
Didn't they both end up regretting it, or one of them regretted it?
No, none of them have regretted. The third
Maybe
guy,
I was thinking of my dad. My dad regretted it. The third guy.
Peter Norman, the
Yeah.
white guy who's Australian,
Yeah.
he lost everything.
Yeah.
Because he gave them the gloves, and he supported it, and basically they wouldn't even. He held all the records for Australia. They wouldn't acknowledge it until he died.
And this is Peter Noonan.
Peter Norman.
Oh man, for something good. Peter Noonan looks exactly the same. All right, so every day we'll talk about Smith and Carlos, whatever comes up, and
Oh,
Peter
that
Noonan.
sounds fun.
We'll play a fucking fun song by Ehrman's Ermits.
I could play I'm Henry VIII.
Mrs. Brown, you got a lovely daughter. I mean, there's just so many hits. So many fantastic hits. I like when Batman won for Vice the other day, and he came in so cockney.
Hello, governor. I got the bleeding Golden Globe here.
What the fuck is that about? Because, look, I saw you when you were like 8. You were in a Steven Spielberg movie. You didn't grow up in the fucking streets of East London the way you're pretending.
It's a Charles Dickens character.
You can't trust fucking. Consider yourself. Oh, mate.
Hello.
Consider yourself part of the family. Even his own fucking friends and family were just staring at him. Thank you, everybody.
I went back to look at his freak out to see what his voice sounded like in that, and it's nothing like that. It's
Exactly.
just a simple English accent where he did the fucking la dee da walking through the set.
I don't know what
That was my favorite
That was
quote.
the
The
best.
Terminator. He said, "Do I come walking through your light setup going la dee da?"
You know what was really funny to me about that? Is that people were mad at him for freaking out like that. But this is the movie, guys. Stay away from the guy's fucking sight line. What are you, crazy? Fucking around during the shots?
I mean, the guys did sound pretty annoying,
Yeah.
at the very least.
I was on that set for the Ghostbusters, and they had to have hundreds of people. And when it was time to fucking the thing, everybody literally froze. There wasn't a person moving, and I'm like, wow, this is fucking intense. You know what I mean? You don't fuck around doing that. That's the movie.
No, and since it was a giant soundstage, everyone would yell. I forgot what they yelled, but they would yell something to make sure.
Quiet on the set.
I don't think it was quiet on the set. It was something else.
You know what? You're mocking him, but he had this experience. He was almost in that movie.
Almost. Go Ghostbusters! I can't believe that was cut.
Yeah. Well, the reason why is I was laughing.
and then everyone would just shut down because they couldn't communicate with everyone at the same time because the fucking thing was a giant warehouse.
I don't know what he means. I can't communicate.
I thought maybe you knew because you were there.
They did communicate with everybody at the same time.
Well, I'm saying they couldn't. It was like a PA system or whatever, but they just wanted to make sure everyone was shutting the fuck up because they were shooting.
Dude, they were wearing fucking earbuds.
Well, then why were they yelling all those things out?
Mic check, mic check. They just did that.
You know what? You guys have taken a wonderful thing and you've mocked it out completely. You made Chris look like a fucking, like the brand is chaos.
They're killing my memories, Ron.
Your fucking partying is killing your memories.
That's on you, dude.
You fucking kick your brain cells. You throw them in the air like they were confetti. It's Simba's brain cells. Yay! Yay! Earl, what did your dad tell you to do with life?
When in doubt, create something.
Create something. And you never have.
I think I've created a few things.
Well, like what?
You know, I've created photographs. I've written.
Let me see if I can create a photograph right here, right now with my phone.
He just did it with his
Let
thumb.
me just...
Just now.
Making Earl's dad proud.
There's a picture of Earl.
Take one.
I'm going to put my creation up right now. I'm going to send it to Twitter. And just show that I've... you're a pretty fucking guy, Earl. You really are.
Oh, that's a really cute photo.
I know. I'm going to actually have it printed up into posters and sell it. Yeah.
I guess Earl's dad was right.
Yeah.
You feel good about yourself right now, don't you?
No. You know what? I'm not going to put this out. I'm going to save it for me. You know?
Personal use.
Yeah. Why shouldn't I?
I was kicking around the idea of buying the the iPhone 10? 10 off? It's 10.
Easy, guys.
I didn't know that was
All
your
right.
limit.
Look.
We argue about this all the time. He's like, "Is it the X or the 10?"
This isn't an inside joke like you say.
Yeah,
That was real.
What's
Seems like you're both having fun with Bill, right?
I think the correct answer is iPhone 10. Okay?
Yeah.
So let's all settle down.
Let's just
Earl's
drop
right.
it, never bring it up again.
What iPhone do you have now, Earl?
I have the 8, and I took this shot.
Are you going to
with it.
jump over 9?
Don't you want
There
some
is no
time
9.
with the 9?
There's
Huh?
no 9 yet.
But why is there a 10?
There's not. There's an X.
You know.
You know that's a trigger for him.
But can I just tell you, hey, easy with it. Yeah, but that's a trigger for him too. Look, if there's no iPhone 9, it sounds like that's an iPhone X then.
They call it the 10.
But there is no 9.
If you jump over 9, how
I know
could it
that
be?
I'm not disputing that.
Easy, dude. I see that you're on the fucking edge right now.
I'm going to drop it.
Yeah.
It's probably the iPhone 9, actually. The X is the 9.
Let's just all agree to call the X the 9.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, that's it.
I'm in on
You
that.
watch the keynote speech, they call it.
Oh,
the 10.
nerd.
I'm sorry, did Trump brought that up? Because this guy is not the president of anything but Apple. And hasn't their stock fallen through the fucking floor?
Yeah.
Yes.
Why?
I think because the reason why I didn't buy the phone is because it's like $800. It's like really.
You got nothing but money.
But this almost convinced me to buy it. I took a selfie with it.
Jesus. That's with a phone?
That's the phone.
All right, you know what? Let's put that picture up right now.
You think that's better than yours?
I think it looks scary. I don't think he looks human in that.
It does kind of look like almost like a painting of you mixed with a photo.
Ew.
You know what I mean?
But a bad painting.
Feels like a terrifying freak.
I will tell you. All right, easy.
Say
But-
the picture, not you in real life.
No. But your nose has never been shiny like that. Those eyes look dead. Your head looks too big, girl. And I'm going to be totally honest. Your clothes look raggedy.
Yeah.
I'm going to put this on Instagram right now. And say what's wrong with this picture, and just let people.
It was a an experimental show. I was like, let me check this thing out.
But you want to look like this all the time?
Again, that's why I did not buy the phone.
You know how they have that face recognition, or you look like somebody who's a pop sugar or something?
Yeah.
I bet if we did this, it would be Shrek.
I worked a birthday party last weekend where they had a costume Shrek come in, and it was such a scary costume. The birthday kid began crying, saying that's not the Shrek I wanted, and 10 kids refused to come back into the room until Shrek was banished out of the building.
Was it just you?
I actually don't know why anyone ever gets those things for birthday parties, because they always seem to be like at least half the kids are traumatized, especially clown. Don't get a clown for your kid's birthday. Holy fuck! I thought you were really exaggerating. That's a nightmare. That's not good. That's not for kids.
But children need to know that's who they fucking watch on TV.
Jesus Christ! That is
Donkey.
so upsetting.
Oh, God.
Even Donkey looks distorted and scary. Holy smokes. What did the girls look like? Terrified.
Yeah, I guess they are. Kids. There was a TV show called Happy the Clown in Philly when I was a little kid, and my friend Turtle, who showed up at that fucking show that I did down there and was in the front row and just talking to me throughout the entire show. He was there with my friend Hang. And I heard this story when I was a kid from Hanghole, but I don't know whether Turtle would back it up completely. But they went to the Happy the Clown show, and I don't know what happened. One of them was supposed to go down a sliding board, and Happy was pushing him. One of them just freaked and said, "You're not the real Happy the Clown," and they both started trying to physically fight with him.
Just turned on him.
Yeah, and I guess the confusion of. And I guess maybe he was at the age where there wasn't a real Santa Claus or whatever, but he decided even to say Happy the Clown for TV, he might be getting faked out on. But no, I don't blame those children for losing their shit over Shrek.
Yeah, it's a terrifying Shrek.
Shrek is terrifying.
Yeah,
he's a fucking monster. He's not a happy person.
But he has layers. That's the whole point to him.
I don't think there is. I think that was a really bad, unlikable person who, just because the movie was made about him.
Don't you think the ending is weird that instead of him getting better, he makes a Shrek woman? Like he makes
Yes,
the
a
princess
beautiful
become
woman.
a Shrek?
That's what
Into a
happened?
piece, yeah.
Yeah. She used to be like a princess.
Yeah.
And then she too becomes an ogre like him.
She looked like Cameron Diaz, and then she
Yeah.
became Shrek
He was
monster.
Cameron.
Then she was like a female Shrek.
Yeah.
A lady Shrek.
Yeah.
And
So
like
she gets shunned by the town.
She was ruined by what she did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they used to call her, no offense, Earl, Shrek lover and stuff like that.
Okay.
And then she basically turned into a Shrek.
yeah.
And that's what the fucking racist French metaphor is all about. The French are the most racist and terrible of all people. Maybe I shouldn't say that these days. Let me apologize in advance. And by advance means right after I said it, but in advance of anybody asking.
But I think we can all still agree with the German thing, as you brought up with the guy. on
That
the
goes
other,
without saying.
I think.
And the Dutch.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're done.
Mm-hmm. Do you have just maybe one more? Or?
Thailand. They don't have the same thing for human condition as we do. I'll just leave it at that.
Chinese too.
Oh, yeah, of course the Chinese, Chris.
Human rights are fucking none.
Why would there be? There's too many of them.
Yeah.
You know what I
Everyone
mean?
stands too close together. I'll give you that.
They stand so close together that 9 months later there's another Chinese person. Well, Chris, why don't you plug the Unmasked we got coming up?
That's Unmasked with Adam McKay with 11 minutes missing.
Well, you're not supposed to say that.
Oh, okay.
The only people that'll know that are the people that were there.
So the Adam McKay.
You were the person in charge of editing it, right?
Yes, I was. Yes.
And then he goes, "Here it is. If you want to listen to it," and I say, "I do not want to listen to it. In case there's something wrong, I could go, Chris. Chris fucking did it.
So that's coming up today.
Is it going to make any sense, or is it just
It's going to make sense.
Okay.
It's going to make sense. That's coming up a little bit after 4 p.m. today, around 4:15.
4:15.
roughly, because of the shortened time.
Weird. All right, so we break here.
Yes, we should break here.
All right. Are we coming back with that, or what are we doing?
No, we're that's airing in about an hour. So we're just going to break right now.
Airing about an hour. I thought. All right. Bennington. It's Bennington Show. Coming up in just a little bit. Adam McKay, big comedy director. And, this has kind of been the new thing where the comedy directors start to make somewhat more serious film. Adam McKay's doing that, and then Peter Farrelly did it with the, I think it's called Behind the Green Door. Is that it? Or is that a 70s porn? I don't remember which. What is it, the Green Book?
Green Book, yeah. Yeah, that does seem to be the thing. It's like that same thing that it used to be actors become directors and everyone would say, oh, that's what they really want to do. Yeah.
And well, obviously comic actors will always, Adam Sandler will do his 9/11 film.
Right.
They adored me. But I would say this, and I'm being very fucking serious about this. Do you think Peter Farrelly could do a better job, let's say, directing Goodfellas than Martin Scorsese could do directing Dumb and Dumber? You know what I mean? Like, to do what Dumb and Dumber is an almost impossible thing to pull off.
I guarantee that would be way harder.
Yeah.
I guarantee it. First of all, timing and editing. Like, editing is so important.
You don't know where you're going with it with a stupid comedy. You just are like, I have no idea. Hey, Chris, do we have any scissors around?
Oh, we should, yeah.
In the office, yeah.
Oh, that's okay. That's all right. It's too far away. We'll do it later. I'll do it during the unmasked. I just have to cut off a lesion that I have. It's a cancerous lesion.
I feel like you should have a doctor do that.
No. My thing is always DIY. I did that with my ska punk band, the Benningtons, and seems like we did okay for ourselves. We're recording right here in my living room, boys. Fuck them. And I think after 17 albums, I think I proved the point. I was trying to think. Every town used to have almost this version of an underground newspaper. And I can't think of the name of it, but wherever it was almost like a timeout for indie bands. And I can't think of, maybe it was
like
just,
it was like a zine? Or
it was more corporate than that. It was just called The Paper or something. I remember I picked it up in D.C. before and a couple other cities. Yeah, it's been driving me crazy. And if I don't find out the answer to it, I'll kill myself.
No, please.
I can't go on like this. It's like just hearing a drip going on forever. It is the Bennington Show, and this Adam McKay thing. I'll just say this: it's the shortest Unmasked we've ever done. Did not start out that way, but anybody who was at the Unmasked will enjoy listening to this Unmasked to see what isn't there.
It's like a game of its own, like a Magic Eye or something like that.
Right. I'm trying to think of somebody came up and said to me, "Oh, you handled that great." And I go, "Well, you won't hear that." That is gone. Now, Gail, you said that you're having a problem with dictionaries right now. And,
yes.
You want to help a little bit.
Yeah, I have a big problem with dictionaries.
Yeah.
They don't have enough words in them.
Oh boy.
All right. So I was thinking about the amount of words that do not have an English single word to explain something that it's common enough that it seems like it should have a word. And I'll give you an example. This is one that I thought of. The situation when you sound better singing in a shower or in a bathroom. It's like a very specific thing where you sound great on your own and then you sing in front of people and you're like, that's not as good.
I got a name for that. I would call it the Bill Murray.
it's a very common thing.
Right.
You like feel like you could nail something when you're like alone singing in the shower, and then you were like, "Yeah, I'll go ahead and sing that tune." Ooh, that does not. That's not a thing.
I would. This is something that goes along the same way. Is that you feel you know all the words to a song, unless you're just hearing the fucking backing track,
That is
and then
true.
you don't know any of them. But if the song is playing on the radio,
Yeah, you
you're
feel.
fucking Buttercup. But if you tried to sing Buttercup without that, you're like smarter butt popping in
Like-
every time you want.
There almost should be a word for the sounds you make when you're skipping over lyrics that you don't know. Like
I like that.
The stuff that you're like,
Yeah, Scudda butt. All right, I have one, and this is something that I always remember from being a child, but it's the feeling you get when you're going over a hill or something, and you feel this sparkle excitement in your nuts. You would get it from the drop in a roller coaster. Taking a hill too fast.
Yeah, that should have a one word because women feel it in their ovaries.
Yeah.
So it's like a low belly feeling.
Right.
And for dudes, I found this out later. I thought, that funny feeling you get in your stomach when this thing happens. And then guys would be like, you mean your balls?
Right.
And you're like, oh, okay, I see just the sex organs
Right.
go with
Now, I
excitement.
remember in kindergarten, my friend's mom would drive us, and there would be a hill and then another small hill. So you're going down the hill, and then there was a bump, and we would go faster. And we would look at each other, but we wouldn't say, does that feel great in your balls? But I feel like if we would have had a word, an acceptable word.
Exactly. It would make it less uncomfortable. That's not just ball tingle.
Vito, I see you. You look like you have something here. Is yours going to be when you look like a coworker and
That
even the fans of the show confuse you both?
When people come in and I need to explain, I don't want to say the whole sentence. That's my coworker. I look like. I just want one.
Chris, what are you doing out here in the lobby getting me?
My word would be for when you're at work or you're out and you feel like you forgot to do something at home, like you left the water on.
That's called an OCD.
I have it. I have it.
Because I just panic like stuff like I guess I didn't flush the toilet or I left the
just left
shower
it
The
on.
one that you're afraid of. It's just that I've never had that. I'm afraid that
big-
my shit is just sitting in the toilet all day for my sad
big-
mom.
Massive bear log is fucking
then
bringing in flies.
His mom comes up. Oh God, we don't know.
It terrifies me. I don't want to live in a world where my mom walked home to my giant shit and I constantly think I went to the bathroom this morning. I fucking hope I flushed.
This is a kind of an edible, fucking childish, sexual connection between shit and mommies that exist.
I don't want to see my no shits.
What you need to do is go see a psychiatrist.
Yeah, and just explain the shit.
That
for
is
me.
that's that weird OCD. I had a kid, Tuttle, working for me when I was in Florida, who had just terrible OCDs about stuff like that. And he would, during the show, go down to make sure that his lights were turned off in his car. Because we were doing morning radio, and he would think, did I turn my lights on? So, all the time, I would just be doing this show, and I'd kind of look out the window and go, whose lights are on? And boom, he would be going like this. There was no way that he would even go, you're fucking with me. He would just take off as hard as he could. And it happened on a constant basis. Who gives a fuck if your lights are on, dude? Jump. Get a fucking jump for yourself and settle down.
It does seem like it needs a word. Just
Yeah,
that
it does.
paranoia.
Yeah, that weird paranoia. Stuff that really doesn't matter too much. Like, did I leave the oven on? Everyone was, did I leave the oven?
Yeah.
You slow cook things for fucking 12, 14 hours.
Right.
What is going to happen to your oven? Earl, does this exist for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of similar where, like, it happened to me the other day where I'm leaving to catch a train, and that moment where you forget that one item that you really like, but you don't necessarily need, but you can't really go back.
Is it your fidget spinner?
No, it was,
What is it?
it was my sunglasses. I just
Yeah,
left my sunglasses. And I
That
was just
can ruin a day.
Well, I remember Fezzi, who fucking struggles with all this. He would do a thing where he counted. You gave him another reason to count, but he would count to 10. Like, I got my 1, I got my 2, because he figured out how many things does he need that are smart. His lifesavers, his fucking keys, his thing, and if he came to 9, then he would go back over. And I used to tease him about that until I remembered, I have a wife. So I get help with that because I'm like the nutty fucking professor. I'd leave a house without my pants on if I wasn't stuck. And now she goes over and is with the baby
Yes.
during the show. And I'm like, what the f*** don't I own a hat? Where do I keep my coat?
Stop.
Yeah.
She needs just to put everything in a bucket by the door for you. Did you get your bucket?
Oh, that should be the name. And we do this on Shark Tank.
Your stuff bucket.
What is it, stuff bucket?
Your stuff bucket.
So, sharks, if you want to fill this stuff bucket up with money, man, the stuff bucket is a good idea.
It's a good idea.
Yeah. That's the fucking. Well, a lot of. Here's another thing, too. Because you have so many different remotes now for your TV, you need a stuff bucket over
You
there.
need a stuff bucket. It's a bucket of stuff.
Perfect. It's exactly what I needed.
Well, we did come up with the name for the junk drawer that every kitchen will have shit that, is like, maybe you use it once every 2-3 years.
I like the idea of the stuff bucket because you can also later get a smart stuff bucket, which will alert you on your app if you didn't take your stuff.
It's weighted.
Exactly. It knows the perfect weight of all your stuff you need every day.
And then
It's not bad.
You just get this thing on your phone that says, "You forgot me."
No.
Bing! You forgot me.
Some people are like that with their children. You ever hear people who have their kids somewhere and then leave? Fucking hilarious. That's because men are always like somewhere else, and it's always men that do that. Like you fucking drive home from, and they're like, "Didn't you pick up the kids?" You just drive back and there's just two kids sitting with a teacher in the parking lot. See their little fucking red eyes. No, you weren't forgot, buddy.
I just like the idea of the drive being like in Raising Arizona. Never leave a man behind.
That's the best fucking scene in any movie. That is such a funny fucking scene. That scene could be ripped off and put in almost any movie where the guys are just screaming in the car. Earl, there should be a word for you when people who only knew you on the phone find out that they're black when they meet you in real life.
Yeah, that's a thing. And maybe the premise of Black Klansman.
Oh, shit, son. Yeah, that Black Klansman was a ripoff. He didn't go into the Klan. He just called them on the phone.
That's bullshit.
It should have been called prank call.
I mean, the Klansman was white.
Yeah.
It should be called Jewish Klansman. Because that's the truth of it.
Well, I had a better name. It's shorter, but I don't think I can use it these days that we live in. These days. There could be like a million fucking words in and I was thinking this when I was watching Chris DiStefano and Sal Vulcano. They're touring together, right? Oh. And they are having in their off time where they'll make a little video. Too much fun. You can see this love that they have, and their funny jokes together are. They laugh too hard. They laugh way too hard. And I remember I had that with my buddy Wardy when we were growing up, that we would be laughing so hard that he would stick his head in my ribs and push, right? And then I had to invent this kind of elbow move to block him off. But people would look at us like, yeah, you guys are funny, but...
Yeah, the word is like something for enjoying it more than everyone else is.
Yes, that's a good... Yeah, that's what it would mean. And
the performer is its biggest fan.
And I'm pointing this out to every fucking psychology student, it isn't sexual, okay? It's just a couple of buddies who laugh too hard at each other and enjoy each other too much. That's all.
And then share a physical touch to express how funny they find each other.
It's more wrestling than it is molestation. All right, now's when it gets weird. We got to bring Chris Stanley into this. Gail's premise, of course, is so many things take place in life that we don't have terms for. What's yours, Chris?
All right, I got two. Both deal with walking in awkward situations.
Okay.
The first is walking around the office, right? And then you see someone that you know, but you don't want to say hello to. And then the move is, and I've done it, and I've seen people do it to me. You turn your head and you look into like an office and pretend you're paying attention to something, but you're just avoiding saying hello.
Why won't you just say hi?
Rude. No, but other people do it, Ron.
They don't.
I swear to God.
Unless you make everyone so uncomfortable. Let me ask you this. Have you done it with me?
I've never done it with you.
Well, I like the idea, just like maybe actually looking into the office. Hey, Bob. Sorry, I'm talking to someone over here.
I would only call that being an engineer, because those fucking non-social weirdos.
Oh, they're strange.
Yeah, they're weirdos.
They're really weird.
You don't want to be one of them.
I actually prefer that they don't try to make contact, because when they do, it's terrible.
And yet, like, if you have an engineering problem, they're all over you. They'll talk, go in deep, show you pictures of their kids. But when it's not your time, when you are not the engineering problem, they don't want to say hi.
They can't fix you.
Because they're fucked up weirdos. All right, that's number one, and I knew we'd all turn on you on this, Chris. And tell you that your thing.
I swear to God, it happens. All right, the second one is when you're walking down the street and you don't know which way to go, and you end up just fucking dancing with the fucking person.
I think that there's got to be a term for that in another language, because there are other languages that are better at defining things, and I would say German always has something.
Oh,
like there's so many German words that you're like, why don't we have a word for that?
Right, like fill up the train. That's a big one for that. Now, here's the thing here. If we would all just agree like we would in a car, you go right.
Yeah.
If you and a car were heading towards each other, you each head to your right, and life is fine.
We can't do that on the street.
But we should. There's no reason not to. Now, I told you I had that same weird thing with the sitting president, George H.W. Bush, when I was younger, and we did this with each other, and the fucking Secret Service wanted to kill me. I got a walking one for you, too, and that's that you make a little fucking skip, like your foot sticks into the sidewalk or whatever, and you turn around as if something else were there.
Oh, yeah, that's perfect.
Did it.
What? So who put that thing there? Okay,
yeah, there's nothing there. Everyone knows there's nothing there. So you're making it look even worse by searching for a microbe that you think tripped you.
Yeah, I guess the embarrassing thing with that is that you are like, clearly I couldn't trip on my own.
Yes,
I've been sabotaged.
I've been walking for quite a few years now, and I'm very good at it.
It's a saboteur amongst us.
I got a good one. You're an adult, and you trip, and you certainly don't want anyone to help you up. That happens in New York. Very much.
Especially with the elderly. The older you are, it seems like you become proud to be like, get off me.
Get the fuck off me. I'm not done yet. You know what I mean? Because you just feel like, oh, this is the end. You know? I'm 40. I fell. Life is over now. You know what I mean? I'm going to end up in a chair.
Tourists stare at you, and you're like, no, they don't want help up. Trust me.
Yeah, just fucking don't. Go back to fucking Oshkosh or where the fuck you're from, where this kind of shit can go down. Chris, give me one other person who looks in an office rather than say, gives a nod, a friendly nod.
Yeah,
there's someone who, I don't know his name, but I know him and I say hello to him. And it's a dude who used to be Rob Cross's office mate.
Oh, I love that guy. We talk all the time.
I know, and I talk with him, but then sometimes he'll
all right, don't give out his real name because that's fucking rude. And you're absolutely wrong about that. Because he and I will talk sports. We'll talk to each other next to in a urinal. We'll have long conversations. That should be, there could be 2 words for that one. One is for people who talk too much at the urinal, and 2 for people who refuse to talk at the urinal at all. And you can say something to them and you can watch them physically suck the piss back up into their bladder. Now, our own Chris Stanley will not use a urinal, and I've worked with him for fucking 12 years, and I think he's got a corkscrew dick.
My corkscrew dick is not real. I have a regular dick. I just worry about the
Regular
shits.
dick.
So your corkscrew dick is false, and you have a real
I
dick.
just have a real normal dick.
It doesn't sound like it.
There's no corkscrew.
It sounds like you have a prosthetic corkscrew dick.
You remove the
Cover up
corkscrew dick.
your regular dick.
I'm not trying to pass a drug test. It's my real dick.
Just think about how bad his real dick is if he's
He
got
needs
to
a
put a fake corkscrew on
How
it.
about we come up with a name, and it could also be for Chris's corkscrew dick, and it's the kind of dick that not even Kevin Spacey would grab.
All right, I found a list of a couple words that exist in other languages that we don't have. So in German, they have Kummerspeck, which is the weight gained due to excessive eating that stems from sadness. So it actually translates to grief bacon. So it's just sad eating. It's just Kummerspeck.
Grief bacon. It seems like a grief bacon night tonight. Do any of you guys, do you sad eat?
Yes. 100%.
And happy eat and nothing eat.
Sad eat, sad
Boring.
drink. But when I wasn't drinking, I was definitely sad eating because
Yeah,
I
'cause
wasn't
you
drinking.
weren't.
So I guess I'll just buy 2 pints of ice cream downstairs in the bodega and
Yeah.
eat both of them.
Wow.
I really don't sad eat, but I'm 100% a bored eater. Like, I have nothing to do in this moment. I just make a little snack for myself. And then later I'll do it again when I'm just like passing. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
more like, oh, I have, like, it's something to do with your hands. It's horrible to do.
Right. Yeah, and it's that. But I totally get, there's like a winter eating that takes on that I think borders on sadness.
Yeah.
Where
Right.
you wouldn't normally.
Like hibernation sadness. Like,
But also bar. So you're in a bar and you're drinking, and it's too late to be drinking, but then you start to deep fry with that drinking.
I want some jalapeno poppers. I don't eat these normally.
That's a really good point. Who the fuck would eat a jalapeno popper?
I can remember the first time I ate a jalapeno popper, which is really strange, but it was at a Renaissance festival. And I remember thinking, like, I didn't know this was a Renaissance dish. And it took me a long time to right that wrong, to realize that they were wrong to be serving jalapeno poppers. It's not my fault as a child being like, I love these old timey jalapeno poppers that they used to serve in ye old England.
Surf food is what it was.
Yeah, it doesn't. I guess some guy just had a fucking cart. That's the only thing.
He thinks it's time for a jalapeno popper.
Oh, Earl, you don't add much, do you?
There should be a word for that.
Yeah.
Earl should slap her.
Earl's one of the world's great one-on-one talkers, though. Like, if you were on a airplane with Earl, by the time you got to LA, you'd be like, I've learned a lot about his interest.
That's
You know what I
interesting.
mean?
There are people who are like that. It's
Yeah.
just the more people in the room, the quieter they get.
Yeah.
But a one-on-one experience, downright chatty Cathy.
My friend Bri is pretty quiet in a big crowd. You get him one-on-one, you're like, this fucking guy's a genius. You know what I mean? Like, he seems to know something about every fucking topic. Science, geography, history, art. And then, like, if you're just hanging out, he's just like a regular guy.
Yeah.
And that's the way Earl does that with music, film, and, of course, Black History Month.
It's coming up. Oh,
You
speaking of
excited
Black,
this year?
speaking of Black History Month, Showtime next month for Black History. Teddy Pendergrass documentary.
Oh,
Nice.
I ain't go better let it go. Well, that sounds fun. Did I don't know why I did this. I was so fucking frustrated because I'm not even watching anything on demand, and I went deep in and bought a film from 1973 on Amazon Prime called The Long Goodbye. It's a Robert Altman film. It's so fucking great. And the funny thing is, you could just see how dirty and dusty the 70s was. You know what I mean? Like he's going into the Malibu colony, right? Which is where all the you see, it's like dirt roads and shit. Like no one even thought we're rich. Our roads should be paved. You know what I mean? They were just so fucking laid back. But the funniest thing in this movie is there's a bad guy in the movie because it's kind of like a film noir. And he's a fucking horrible bad guy. I mean, he's really a terrible, terrible person. And he has goods around him all the time, you know, fucking muscle. And one of the muscle, and he never says a word. He's just standing in the background. And at one point, he was even told, like, get up out of the chair. And he just gets up for this tiny little boss. And it's fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger. Never has a word in the movie. Is simply a muscular guy. At one point, he's told to take his pants off, and he does. And not much of a bulge there, folks. Not much of a bulge. But I found it so funny. Like, in 12 years, that guy was going to be probably the biggest movie star in the world.
In many ways, he could have stayed being that guy.
Yeah.
Seems like could have worked for him.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't do much as the lead guy.
Yeah, that's a very weird situation that just at his body mass just propelled him to stardom.
You know who I feel like we're there now with is The Rock. Why The Rock? He's not a good actor.
No. Yeah.
He wasn't even a great wrestler. He was, you know.
And the country, the nation is charmed by him.
He's just charismatic.
They're just charmed by him.
Ron Funch does this thing about fucking The Rock in his Ron Funches.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, you just still different. That's Emily Blocknick's 15. You know? And it's basically people love The Rock.
Yeah.
They love him. His movies are fucking terrible. Terrible.
You think that there's a thing there where, you know, like somebody say like, oh, somebody is funny for this type of thing. Like it's almost like he has a personality that if it was on a regular person, it would be like, yeah, he's just a regular guy. But because he looks like he should be some dumb jock asshole or something that people go, oh, he's a little bit funny. You know, like
First
John
of all,
Cena
I mean,
kind of has that. Or...
yeah, that's a perfect fucking one, too. Why? That fucking guy.
Yeah.
But the thing, too, when you hear about The Rock, he's so peculiar. He's fucking setting an alarm clock to eat tuna at fucking 2 o'clock. Yeah. You know what I mean? He throws fucking tires between 3 a.m. and 3. I mean, it's insane. And everybody looks at him like, what a sweet. And I guess he is. I guess he is. Everything about him is nice. Except for if he married your sister, you'd be like, that dude's nuts. And maybe you should take the kids and leave him.
I'm taking the kids to my sisters.
I love that girl so much. That last one that she did
was the best one.
It was the best SNL moment of my life. If you think I'm going to watch Drago's kids fight Creed's kids, and I'm not taking my kids to my sisters, holy shit, was that fucking I don't think it gets enough love either. I don't think it gets the kind of love it deserves.
That's like...
I think it should be up there with Rosanna Dana. I think it should be that big.
I wonder why that's a cliche that we never picked up on before.
I'm taking my kids.
Yeah, but like that, the just like boxer girlfriend is.
Yeah, they never like. They married a boxer and they fucking hate it. They just hate it because the guy's going to go in and get beat up.
Recently, there was a tweet that went viral where a guy was pointing out. Like he was like, hi, I'm a professor in a movie. I come to the point right at the end of class, and after the bell rings, I yell out, don't forget the reading or the homework. Yeah. And you're like, that is the same thing in every movie. We're like, oh, good. He's got the patches on his elbow. He's getting to a very interesting point as everyone leans in. Kind of funny.
And then he's all like, this is important stuff as they're fucking leaving.
Every single time.
Even though they're in college, they have zero interest in their major. You know what I mean? They're not like, really? Like, that's something I am curious about. Like, no, get out. The 48 minutes is over.
Every rom-com has a woman lawyer who's just too busy for love, and then she meets a man child who finally shows her that she can have fun in her off time.
Well, one thing that we've learned is all women really need is some dick. And that's all, no matter what they've pointed themselves to.
Yeah.
They just really want to settle down.
I know. That should just be in the voiceover in the beginning. It's like, I thought I had everything, but it was dick I was missing. I had a great job, a really cool dog, but no dick.
Yeah. Even though, like, they were helping poor people get food.
Right.
They always have friends. Like, they're not like a lonely
Right.
person. They have like 5 friends who talk to them about every problem.
And they're like, girl, you're perfect in every way. Why don't you have dick?
Yeah. I don't know, fat friend. It's a really good question. I always like when they have a gay friend who wants them to date. I have gay friends. They've shown zero interest in anyone's life but their own.
Yeah.
They're not there to assist people.
Yeah, my gay friends are never like, you go, girl.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah. It's literally 100% all about them. And yet, for some reason in the movie, and then they act like we're so proud that we put a black gay friend in. You know what I mean?
Right.
We made a part for black gay friends. Diversity.
Well, now friend character is just minority friend in every movie. It's always like, if you look, it's always like a black or Spanish guy in that friend role. They don't give the leading role. They just go, we'll make you the friend.
And you know what? I mean, here's a weird thing. It's like, okay, if it's some unknown guy, how many times have you seen Dave Chappelle
Yeah.
in that role?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, why does...
Give him more.
Yeah, why does Dave Chappelle there to help Tom Hanks find love? I don't know, bro. You got to figure that one out.
And Chris Tucker was that in Silver Linings Playbook.
And then he never even got another role after that. You're like, it's fucking Chris Tucker. He's one of the funniest fucking actors I've ever seen in my life. They got nothing for him.
They did twice in A Star Is Born. Dave Chappelle was Bradley Cooper's minority friend.
You said it ruined the movie for you.
I thought it took me out because it just seemed like, I don't know, Dave Chappelle. I just saw Dave Chappelle. I didn't see his. I guess he was a drummer or whatever. He played with him before. And then also Lady Gaga's friend was that Hispanic guy that she worked with. So they had 2 minority friends for each of them.
Well, then she also ended up in, a fucking bar for, I don't know, like a drag bar. How many times did you just see a straight woman working with drag? Never. But she's so accepted by the drag community.
Do you think in a Tyler Perry movie there's a white friend? Like they're just like, oh, and then we need somebody to play the white friend.
Turtle from Entourage had that role in a few movies. And the Think Like a Man series, he's the white friend who's like, I hang out with black guys.
Turtle from Entourage should always be called Turtle from Entourage because he plays the same friendly guy.
On the one of those Honest Trailers things, they described him for the Entourage Honest Trailer as the embodiment of every fan of Entourage.
I actually saw, and I don't remember who, one of the Entourage guys said, oh, we could never make that now. He goes, that fucking show would not be made now.
Too like abusive and
yes,
dismissive
they
of women.
would fucking hate us. And I'm like, I think a lot of people
I did.
you then.
I did. I did.
It wasn't a charming show.
Yeah, I didn't need 2018 to tell me that the Entourage guys.
Hold
were
on,
shitty.
before we move on, Vito, you saw every
Oh,
episode.
fuck yeah. I saw
of
the
that.
movie. I saw every episode. But like you look back, you're like, oh, these guys are awful. But I was like 12. So to me, that was.
Yeah, and you would have been Turtle.
Yeah, 100%.
You're the turtle
you're
of our crew.
Such a turtle.
I was wearing polos with matching baseball hats before I ever saw the show. I was 100% turtle without trying.
Did you love the movie?
I convinced myself I liked it when I saw it.
Really?
And then a week later, I was like, why did I tell myself I liked it? Like, it had no. I think Emily Ratajkowski was a love interest. Ronda Rousey was in there. I couldn't tell you a single thing about that movie, but I remember seeing it and going, I guess this did service to the show, and then just.
Well, they had far too big of a budget for zero story.
Yeah, for zero
Just
story.
Zero fucking story.
It was a long episode. It wasn't even.
Yeah.
It wasn't a movie.
But it also looked like it wasn't an episode at all. It looked like those guys were stuck in a movie. You know what I mean? There could have been a talking cartoon cat in that fucking movie. That's how over the top it was. The thing about Entourage that made it a hit, it's every young guy's dream. It's the entire problem with the NBA that when you make your money, you still have those best buddies. You know what I mean? And you bring them along.
Right, like that's your family, essentially.
Yes.
With you.
And you're like, why do you have those 8 guys following you around? You're worried about being beat up. And you're like, no, I've been with 8 guys for the last fucking 5 years. And I'm just the one who makes the money now. And that's why young guys, when they make their money, they go fucking broke. Because by the time they turn around, they now have 8 separate families that they're in charge of. You know, because Turtle gets married. He has children. What are we doing next, boss? How are we going to do this?
Vince backed his tequila company. And all of his
not
business
real, though.
endeavors.
I mean, we've moved on now.
He thought that was a documentary.
Yeah.
No, I did. Because it was a real tequila company.
Did you even watch Entourage, Chris?
I watched the first 3 seasons and then got disgusted and stopped watching.
What disgusted you?
The end, whatever happened at the end of the 3rd season, I think when Ari was out, I just got tired of them being with Ari.
Didn't Ari stay throughout
Yeah.
the...
They were out for. He
At
was
one
out.
point,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
fired him.
And she
Yeah,
went
but
with
no
Carla
one
Gugino.
believed it.
Look, every dude watches the show. Every
yeah.
man watched Entourage.
You didn't
Yeah.
get up to this, the Sophie, the coke addiction and the
No,
Sasha
I didn't. I
Grey.
just heard about it. It sounded.
I don't know how you tap out. I mean, you've already made a commitment to
3
the
seasons.
series.
Just keep going. Where's
Yeah.
Vince? What's Vince going to end up doing?
He did the same thing with The Office.
Yeah.
He skipped out on The Office after 3
Really?
seasons.
Season 3, I was sick of it. I was sick
So
of,
3 seasons and out for you.
apparently. I was sick of.
What
If
did
I
they
was
have
your
to do
girlfriend,
for
I'd
you
worry.
in the 3rd season?
What do you need? What are you missing in life? Is it growth? You hate the growth of the characters?
Yeah, I actually don't. Yes, I specifically in The Office, I hated that. Always made it seem as if Pam and Jim are going to break up during the beginning of the episode because Jim does something stupid, but it ends up that's something stupid.
That's
with something
just
nice.
not
Is
true.
there
they
any
didn't
show
do-
that you did like that had a long run that you kept with past?
I probably kept way too long a run with South Park, but I don't know if that counts.
Because there's no growth.
Yeah, there's zero growth.
It's going to
They
be the
stay
same
children.
characters who do the
But
same.
by the way, the thing that he complained about isn't true of The
No,
Office.
not till the last
It was
season.
literally season 11.
Yeah, where the boom mic guy.
Yeah, the boom mic guy. And that was, we had nothing to worry
I
about.
came back for that. That's when I jumped back into the show.
Wait, so you just complained about it. Why would you get back
Because
in?
I wanted to see it happen. I thought they were actually going to break up. That's what I wanted to see.
You know there were a lot of other characters in that
I
fucking
had no
show.
idea who any of the
What
new
about Kevin?
characters
What about what Kevin was up to with his bowl of chili and nonsense?
Kevin had zero growth. As a matter of fact, if anything, he got more
Yeah.
special needs.
He started off as just a normal guy.
Yeah, he
and
was
by
just the
season
fat
4,
guy
he
in the
couldn't
back.
read.
Yeah. And then he would start to talk like this. I'm like, why aren't you booking comedy? You get it now, Vito.
That happens sometimes. That happens sometimes with people who in an ensemble cast where I feel like the writers don't pay attention to them the first season or 2, then they try to write them, and then you go back and watch the first season, and you're like, that's nothing like the character.
Yeah.
In Orange is the New Black, there's like several characters who were minor characters in the beginning. If you went back and watched them, you go, hey, wasn't she supposed to be like some street tough, but now she knows French, but then she's also really sensitive. But in the first one, you see her like intimidating someone
right.
and acting crazy. You're like, come
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
You guys didn't pay attention to the show as much as a viewer of the show?
You know what's really great is to watch like the first season or so of Seinfeld to see that Kramer is borderline special needs. He just comes in like, and then, you know, no one really cares about him.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, they're not friends with him, really.
He's just a nuisance at that point.
Yeah, but a frightening nuisance.
So he was closer to a Newman than he was as like a friend.
Yeah, I think he was closer to Michael Richards than he was to being Kramer.
Did he go to the diner with them, or was it mostly the other two with Jerry?
Yeah, he didn't go to dinner with them.
So, like, he wasn't a real friend. He was just,
he was the guy across the fucking hall who came.
Basically, Crazy Joe DeVola.
Yeah. Which I would have liked to have seen them do more with. I mean, we're supposed to be mad at a guy who they fucked up his meds. Let's be honest. He was a man who needed help. All right. Are we breaking before we go into this Unmasked?
Yes, we are.
All right. So it's a break. And it's going to be a slight announcement. And then the shortest Unmasked that we've ever done. Now, Chris, there are chances to see Unmasked coming up.
That's happening this Tuesday, January 15th at 4 p.m. at the Village Underground. That's Unmasked with Judd Apatow, Pete Holmes, and the cast of Crashing. Go to theinterrobang.com for a chance at free tickets.
I haven't watched any of this yet, but I will. I'm going to power watch it over the weekend. But I was... I know that they've done a lot of Esty from the Cellar because I was
nice.
down when they were shooting.
I love her.
Some of that. And I think you're going to see some Will Savents in this year because he was even supposed to do our show and he was called away for reshoots.
Nice.
So that's also like, it's a fun thing for us to watch that show because it's like a home movie for us.
Yeah, it really is. Hey, all my friends are in that show.
Yeah.
It's the way stars used to pop up on Entourage.
Exactly. Full circle. Thank you, Vito. Full
There should be a word for that.
Oh, perfect. And look, Chris just made sure he didn't make eye contact. So he said to say hi to us. Right back. This is Bennington. Adam McKay.
Hello.
First of all, congratulations for Vice. That couldn't have been an easy pitch.
Every studio waits for a guy to come in and say, let's do a movie about a vice president. So they were excited.
Now, when you what made you think this is something I want to spend this kind of time on?
You know, I just started reading about him, and I was amazed by how much he changed history, yet in this shadowy, kind of quiet way, in a way that none of us really cared about. I think we all knew, like, all right, he shot a guy in the face. And I think we knew that, like, Bush was a little bit of a joke. But when I really started looking into how he wired DC, how he just had everything working, and then his history, where he came from, I thought, oh my God, this is kind of an American movie.
Well, it is a fascinating story because even with everything that you've put together, motivation is still an interesting thing here because it didn't seem like he was doing it for a personal, at least not greed, maybe, or fame. There had to be something that was driving him to do this stuff.
We found that it was really simple. It was, if you read books by Sid Field about screenwriting, you read, McKee, all that kind of stuff, there's always that kind of inciting incident. But for him, it was really simple. He fell in love with Lynn Vincent, who was the most beautiful, intelligent, ambitious girl in the state of Wyoming. And she wasn't going to put up with a loser. And that was really it. That was, I think in fact, we interviewed people from his hometown, and they said if he hadn't met her, we never would have heard of him. I mean, it was really about her in the beginning.
Yeah. Could you imagine how much more money we'd have in this country if they never met? But, I was literally... God. Yeah. But here she is from basically so far away from any kind of place where someone would dream about power. And yet she, as a young person in Wyoming, thought we can reshape the world. And it's very oddly kind of Shakespearean because this is before a woman could follow that instinct for herself.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things about her, and she actually wrote a biography, and when you read it, it's a little heartbreaking. It's like a woman in the early 60s who doesn't have options. She can either be a teacher or an academic or a nurse, and that's kind of it. So she knew that she needed a man, like a solid, rock solid man. And that's how she found Dick Cheney. And then she just pushed him and pushed him.
It is so strange because you think she's in Wyoming. There's none of these things around her. You know what I mean? It's one thing if she was born in L.A. or D.C. or New York or Boston, but she wanted this thing when she was basically in the sticks.
Well, I mean, initially, I think she wanted Dick to be a professor. I think she had a dream that she would be a writer. He would maybe do local politics. But Dick got bored with academics, and he really wanted to go towards Washington, D.C., which back then, if you studied political science, you didn't do that. Like, you didn't go to, Washington, D.C. So that was the first time they disagreed a little bit. And Lynn kind of gave him a little bit of a clock and said, like, you better get it going quick. And then he met Donald Rumsfeld. And if you want to get it going quick, Donald Rumsfeld's getting it going quick.
Yeah.
I mean, that guy is a missile of ambition.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, I was thinking as I'm watching this, there's a couple of things that get into your mind. Number one, you just get caught up because it's a game. You know what I mean? The game of politics is fun to watch and imagine yourself. But there's another part of this that I found myself thinking about. He's making all these moves. He's getting us into a war that most people didn't think was the place that we would be heading to. And he seems to be doing it for his own reasons. It's not, do you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I mean, we looked at the move towards Iraq, and there's no magical answer to it. Like, here's what we know. We know that if, like, you're a president and you go to war, you have a lot of power. We know that Cheney was involved with oil. We know that he believed in the unitary executive theory, which gives the president a lot of power during war. So right from the beginning, these guys wanted the Iraq war. I mean, that's what's crazy about it is way before 9/11, these guys were in a room going, how do we attack Iraq?
Right.
I mean, they wanted that right from the beginning. And that's about power. That's about a view of the world. What's scary is if they hadn't hit the insurgency, they would have gone into Iran. I believe that. And from what you read about it, they would have attacked Iran.
And the idea was we could turn this around because Iraq, once they get a little bit of capitalism, they'll be like Delaware or something. You know what I mean? Like at some point he really believed, I was actually thinking, like, well, what if he turned out to be right? You know what I mean? Like, he thought he was, right?
I don't know if they thought it through that much.
Yeah.
I think they wanted the power. I think they wanted the attack. And if you took 2 seconds to look at the Shias versus the Sunnis in Iraq, you would know that's not going to work.
Right.
But they didn't care. They wanted the oil. They wanted the place that they could build an American base at. I mean, it's kind of like Vietnam. Like, if you watch Fog of War by Errol Morris, there's a Chinese general, or I think a Vietnamese general, that comes to Errol Morris and goes, or comes to McNamara and says, why were you so worried about China? We hate China. But they didn't care. They didn't care. It's the action of going to war. It's the action of moving American influence forward. That's my theory as to why they cared.
You think that they wanted to be challenged because this is their chance to make that mark in life. The same way that a lot of young people will join the military, and then hopefully there's a war. So when I come back with these medals, I'll know that I could do it. You think in a minute, like, there's almost never been a president that we say was a great president that hasn't been challenged by war.
Yeah. And I think that's a moment where we as Americans have to look at each other and go, that's messed up.
Right.
why is that the determination of power? It shouldn't be. You know, I mean, the world is much more complicated than that now. There's no troop transports landing on beaches now. There's no bombers going. I mean, like, that kind of war doesn't really exist. But guys like Cheney and Rumsfeld and Feith and Wolfowitz, these guys believed in old school war, and that's
Right.
what they wanted.
And also, a lot of them get way more interested in war once they become older and can't serve themselves.
Yeah,
I mean, most of these guys did not answer the call when they were younger.
Dick Cheney had 5 deferments,
Right.
and then later was asked about it. He's like, I had other priorities. And I think Rush Limbaugh had like a boil on his ass, and Donald Trump had like, I can't remember what his
Bone
was.
spurs. Horrible.
Bone spurs. Yeah.
that Didn't keep him from playing baseball or golf.
No.
But kept
And
him out of
George
the-
W. Bush,
Yeah.
when in the National Guard. Now, over and over again, we see these guys avoid service for their country, but then later want that power. It's heartbreaking. It really is.
It is something that seems to happen over and over. But I really think, as I watched your film, a lot of it I thought was a reflection of us and the way we reacted after 9/11, and some of the stuff. I think that we as citizens allow to happen can be heartbreaking. I know in New York City, we didn't get as patriotic as all the flag stuff. You didn't see a lot of that in New York City, but I did take my kids to a march in New York that there had to be estimates of 1 million people showed up on the same day. And I remember saying to my kids, and they were little, now we'll go home and watch on TV and see what it looked like. There was very little, except for local
I was
news.
at the same march with my wife and kids against the Iraq War.
Right.
And I talked to a police officer and I said, look, you've done a lot of these things. How many people do you think are here? And he's like, I mean, this looks like 1 million. And then I went home and CNN was like 100,000 people turned out.
Yes.
And
And that was for the short time that they had it. And I remember MSNBC was also kind of beating the drums up to the war. And we were putting pictures of people that were leaving. I'm like, oh, this isn't even a debate between the Democrats.
Do you remember when they fired Phil Donahue?
Right.
Phil Donahue was, for people young enough not to know, he was a pundit. He was a talk show host, and he was questioning the war. He was like, wait a minute, I'm not seeing the evidence for weapons of mass destruction. And a couple weeks later, he got a little notice from NBC saying goodbye.
Right.
And it was all about that. It was like, what gets ratings? War. And it was a horrible time to live through. And one of the reasons we made this movie was that we felt like with the insanity going on now, everyone acts like it's just about one day. It's about 1 week.
Yes.
Like, look what Trump did this day. And it's like, this is a story that has been going on for decades.
Yeah.
And one of the moments in the movie I really point to is when Ronald Reagan gives the speech in 1980 where he says, "Make America Great Again." And I've seen audiences hear that moment and gasp. And I'm like, yeah, this has been the same game over and over and over again.
Well, George W. Bush, who's kind of, they're repainting him now and making it, like a little more pleasant than people thought about him a couple years ago. But your friend and coworker, Will Ferrell, a lot of people accuse that sweet, fun thing that he did, that impression that he did of George Bush, of helping George Bush get elected.
Yeah.
Do you feel that way? Or?
That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. I mean, clearly what got W. Bush elected was, racial dog whistle politics. It was catering to elite oligarchs to give them tax breaks. It was the fears of the middle class about losing their jobs, and the idea that like a guy like Will Ferrell would be funny on a show. And
but why not put that in the impression? You know what I mean? Why not make that part of the impression of, hey, this is not a nice fun, kind of dumb guy at all. He's a little bit dangerous.
Well, I directed his one-man show on Broadway, and that's what we put in there.
Right.
I mean, if you watch that show,
but that was after the SNL stuff.
I left SNL at a certain point, and all I can tell you is the show I directed on Broadway, we weren't kissy kiss with him. I mean, we showed it very clearly that there were a lot of forces behind him. I'm not even sure he recognizes it at this point. I mean, that he just a name, the Bush name, who fronted a lot of big money and a lot of ugly stuff, and now he's down in Texas doing paintings of dogs. I mean, it's kind of a sad, tragic, fractured story if you really look at it.
Although those paintings are adorable. They're adorable.
They're adorable.
Really nice.
And I want him to paint my dog too. I'm not going to lie. He's got talent.
And I got to tell you, when he was out with when his dad died, and he was on stage and his voice cracked when he was talking about his father, I'm like, oh, there's a charisma still there. There's something about him that, and in the movie, he's basically a front. Right? He's basically the front.
Which I believe he was for his career. Yeah.
I find it really, really fascinating that he would have even chose Cheney. Like, what was it about Cheney that made him feel like this is the guy I need?
Well, a lot of that came from his dad. Everyone knew W. Bush had a horrendous resume. He literally had 10 years in the middle of his resume where he had no work whatsoever. No joke. And he was partying in a Houston singles condominium. And his first job out of school was selling tropical plants. I mean, he was not a serious guy at all. And so they needed someone who was very serious. And his dad remembered Dick Cheney as Secretary of Defense and was like, oh, this guy has a huge resume. He'll be good. And then later, his dad in his autobiography said, oh, my God, that was a giant mistake. I had no idea Dick Cheney would create a shadow empire within the White House. Those are H.W.'s own words that said that.
Where was he to step in and help, though, once this started to happen? Once his son started to lose whatever control?
There was a whole strange dynamic between H.W. and his son. And from what I've heard, there was about a year and a half where they didn't speak. They did not have a close relationship growing up. Obviously, his dad was very busy. I think it would have been nice if that relationship had been there, but it wasn't there. And Dick Cheney just ran that place, man. I mean, he was so much more experienced than W. Bush. It was his place. And then about 6 years into W. Bush's run, W. Bush started to get it. And there's a famous moment where Dick Cheney says, let's bomb Syria because they have a nuclear reactor. And by now, W. Bush is starting to get it, and he says, who agrees with the vice president at this table? And no one raised their hand. And that was kind of the end of the Cheney run in there. Yeah.
So he got about a 6-year run to do what he wanted. But a lot of the reason, I guess, that woke W up is this stuff wasn't working the way he thought going into
disaster. I mean, his approval ratings were in the tank. The tax cuts, they did 2 of them, all for the elite wealthy, were tanking the economy. They weren't overseeing anything, including the banking industry, and we all know how that worked out. It was basically borderline kleptocracy at that point, and the government started to fall apart. And I think finally W was like, wait a minute. And then when he replaced Donald Rumsfeld, there's a great meeting where he meets with Gates, I think his name is, the guy who replaced Rumsfeld. And there's a great moment where he leans forward to Gates and he goes, what are you going to do about Cheney? And you feel like going like, you're the president. It's an incredible story. It really is. And, one of the great things about the movie, too, is like the performances. I mean, Christian Bale is just transcendent in this role, and Amy Adams just blows you away, and on. Sam Rockwell, Steve Carell. And we were lucky enough to get an array of actors who were just mind-blowingly good.
Yeah, Sam Rockwell. And, of course, Bush is is not the center of this thing, but every time he comes on, it just feels absolutely true. It just feels absolutely true. But I'm not sure if anyone would have thought, despite him, Christian Bale being, one of the great actors of his generation, I don't think anybody would have thought that he could have just disappeared into Cheney the way that he has.
I knew he would do a great job. I definitely knew he would get into the psychology and he would go deep. But oh my God, after 5 makeup sessions and he walked out that one day, the hair stood up on my arms. It was my executive producer, Robin Woolley, and I were like, oh, Dick Cheney is in the room.
He's really good.
He's not playing him. He's summoned him. I mean, that's the way it felt.
And already, you guys, they're talking about you with awards, you're getting nominations. And that's where you have to be with a film like this, I imagine, right? I mean, there's no other way to market this.
Yeah, you don't put this out in June 1st and go, summer fun, right. Dick Cheney.
But, so what kind of pressure does that feel to know, boom, you've got to have that on your side?
I think you make your movie the best you can. Certain people, it's a very unusual movie. We play with form, we play with structure. There's parts that are funny, there's parts that are dramatic. You kind of know some people are going to like it, some people aren't, and you're cool with that. You just kind of dive in, and so far it's gotten a lot of nominations, a lot of attention, so we're happy with that. But whatever ends up happening, it's definitely the story we wanted to tell.
Well, you also do some really unorthodox type storytelling in the middle of this, and the only person I would compare it to is Spike Lee. Spike will do some kind of something in his film that you're like, oh, does that take me out of the film for a second or put me back in? But why do that kind of stuff rather than telling a traditional story?
I think you look at America's relationship with government, and there's definitely been a concentrated effort over the last 30, 40 years to separate us from government. And I think what we forget is representative government is like the throne. That's the throne. And yet there are certain powerful entities that want us to be bored by it. They want us to think everyone's just corrupt. And Cheney is kind of the ultimate bureaucratic player. Everything about him is no spotlight. There's no definitive speeches. And so a lot of what we did with it was to try and bring that to life. Even though this guy seems boring, here's what's really happening. And this is heavy, heavy, important stuff. So by using stylistic devices periodically through the movie, we're trying to amplify that for an audience.
Where do you think Cheney, where do you think he is now with his own history? Do you think he feels he's done the right things, or do you think he feels he didn't do enough? Where do you think?
I just read a thing about him that he's, you guys familiar with New Hope? Do you know that area? That he's living in New Hope. He's playing banjo. He's writing a lot of haiku. And I don't know. No, he is repeating his legacy over and over and over again.
Yeah.
I did what I did to keep America safe. And then meanwhile, his daughter is rising through the ranks in the House. She's now third in charge in the House for the Republicans, the position that Cheney had. So I think a lot of it's about protecting that Cheney name, that Cheney legacy of power. I see him now. He just seems like he's doing that over and over again. God, I would love to talk to him. I would love to see if there's any regrets.
I doubt that'll happen. After this film, I can't imagine him wanting to sit down with you, can you?
I don't know. I think if I have the right food laid out on the table, some quesadillas, a couple craft beers, I think he'd be like, well, that does look good.
Do you think that he's the person talking with his daughter? Do you think that he's helping manage this move of hers? When you think of the amount of wisdom that he has about that kind of political game.
Oh, absolutely. I think Lynn has always been the ambition in this family, always, from the very beginning. I mean, she's brilliant, she's smart, she knows where she's going, but Cheney is the one who knows the details. There's a quote from Lynn that I think sums everything up, where she said, if you want to understand my husband, you have to know one thing. He's a fly fisherman. And fly fishing is all about standing in a river for 6-7 hours and not moving and looking at the currents and looking at what the fish are doing. And it's about patience and a long-term process. And I don't think there's ever been anyone more brilliant that's come through the American representative governmental system than Dick Cheney when it comes to understanding how power works.
And how did that happen, though? I mean, this, like you said, he's went from this party boy, into this other guy. How does one even pick up that kind of wisdom?
I don't know. I think we were all kind of, we're all a bit idiots when we're like 19 or 20 or 21. And I think he really was crazy about Lynn. I really do. I mean, you look at who she was in Wyoming. I mean, she was beautiful. She was the state baton twirling champion. She was a straight A student. She was it. She was like as close. I mean, we got to remember, this is 1959, 1961. There's no internet. There's no TV. I mean, I think this girl was like the star of Wyoming, and I think he hooked on her, and I think that was it. And she said, hey, you can't be getting DUIs and screwing around. He went, all right, it's over. I really do think at root, as strange as it is, this movie is a love story.
Well, you are really kind to him when it comes to the way he's portrayed with his family as well. And I imagine some people who have nothing but hate for him feel like you've humanized him a little more than they're comfortable with.
We definitely sought out to do that. I mean, we definitely felt like the idea of just labeling people as heroes and villains doesn't really accomplish much. I think the idea of understanding how people come to places in their lives where they make certain decisions, I think that's what we should be looking at right now. So, it'd be very easy to just show Dick Cheney as a horrible guy, but like, where did that guy come from? How do you get to that place where you make those decisions? I mean, those are the questions I was intrigued by.
Right. And it's nothing new. As you put it, you grew up in Philadelphia, and you might not be old enough to remember a mayor of Philadelphia, Frank Rizzo.
I'm definitely old enough to remember Frank Rizzo.
Well, Frank Rizzo was basically doing the same kind of stuff. There's people out there who want to hurt you, and I'm the only guy who can save you.
Yeah.
And that seems to be a very easy way to pull a crowd in.
I think it is actually brilliantly said. But I do want to say, despite what you just said, there actually, and disregard what you just said, there really are people out there that want to hurt you. And if you guys gave me money and started voting for me, I really could help you against those people that want to hurt you. No, I'm for real. And my party is called the Eagle of Jesus. And we're going to get back to American values and safety. And yes, we may monitor you. We may look at all your email, your letters. But at the end of the day, you're going to sleep peaceably. You're going to sleep soundly while we film you.
There is an entire younger generation now who safety becomes first, particularly when it becomes to matters of speech. A lot of comedians are going through it right now. How do you feel about the First Amendment and the position that it's in?
I think the First Amendment, it's one of the foundations of America, but I also support the idea of 6-7 stories of computers monitoring every single word that every American says and processing it through algorithms to see if it's a threat to our state. Other than that, I love the First Amendment.
Well, What do you think about with Kevin Hart, where they went back through his
crazy.
Twitter?
I don't support that. I think we're all evolving. We're all moving forward. I mean, we did a movie called Step Brothers years ago, and our villain in the movie used a terrible word that you would not use now, but it was an old movie, and I wouldn't use that word now, but he was the villain, and I feel like we got to give each other room to grow. I think, like, give each other a break. Like, now if someone says this junk like 5 minutes ago and then goes, oh, I learned, then I don't quite buy that. But, like, I know Kevin Hart. He's a really good guy. He's a family guy. How long ago were those tweets? Like 2-3 years ago?
It was, I think it was
2010. 2000, a long time ago.
Yeah.
And that was a different culture back then. I'm not excusing what he said. There was a lot of ignorance back then. Doesn't excuse the hurt and hate that those tweets created. But geez, let the guy evolve, man. He's a good guy. He can be a positive force. Like, give him a little bit of room, you know?
Well, you said you were okay with that in your movie at this time. What changed you? What made you think, I wouldn't put that in the movie now?
You're talking about with Step Brothers?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had Adam Scott use the F word against his two brothers. And I saw it like 3 years ago, and I was like, well, that's not cool. That's not like a hate word. That's a word that, like, leads to people dying. When we used it, it was a stupid word that frat brothers used. And I saw it. I was like, oh, yeah, I would change that if I could now. I mean, that's the one I can think of from all the stuff we've done. Other than that, I'm pretty much, I mean, I'll say this, I don't want to sound full of myself, but other than that, I'm a perfectly enlightened human being.
Sure. But what do you do? Because I mean, obviously, there's a lot of ignorance out there, right? So what do you do to pull those people in instead of pushing them away? Because I think a lot of times when we push them away,
I agree,
it gets even stronger.
I agree. I think, you know someone I really love what they've been doing is Sarah Silverman. I really love how she talks to people who maybe represent some extreme points of view, and she talks to them like human beings. Like, I have 6 or 7 relatives that politically I don't agree with.
You're from Philly.
I'm from Philly. Damn right. Yeah. And I love it.
Yeah.
But I know that from arguing with them, nothing is accomplished. But if I talk to them like people and I just go, look, man, here's why that's weird to say, because it hurts people this. And if you go to that realm, it can make a difference. It's a tricky issue, though, because I also understand why people are really upset by this language. There are a lot of people for decades and decades and hundreds of years that have suffered from this ugly language, and they have every right to be outraged. So when I, as a white dude, talk about, like, what's productive, I mean, I think it's fair to tell me to go, jump in a lake at that point. So, I mean, it's just my 2 cents. It probably isn't my issue, but I do know Kevin Hart's a good guy, and I do know he's a stand-up comic, and I do know the language in stand-up comedy back then, 7-8 years ago, was different. But that having been said, anyone bothered by that, feel free to tell me to, Yeah.
Let me ask you this, because there's, I think one of the sweetest scenes in the movie is when Bush and Cheney are talking about his daughter who's gay, Mary, who's gay, and Bush is like so kind of, hey, we're gonna take care of this, but at the same time we're still going to push anti-gay marriage. Where did that scene come from, and how did you?
Well, that's a true story. I mean, it's a true story that Dick Cheney's daughter came out to him, and he was very receptive. Word for word in the movie, he says, we'll love you no matter what. That is word for word. And then when he was going to become W. Bush's running mate, he knew a big move they were going to do was against homosexuals. And he just said, I can't be a part of that. But Bush's answer was also like, we're still going to do that. And so I look at it as, I don't know. And then there was a point later where Mary Cheney, who became involved in the campaign to reelect W. Bush and Cheney, she almost quit because some of the stuff they were slinging was so ugly and nasty. So, yeah, it's a decent scene that he said that. But at the same time, it's kind of like telling a guy, like, look, you're a heroin addict, or you're a heroin dealer. My daughter's a heroin addict, so I can't deal with you. But keep selling her heroin. You know what I mean? Like it's morally shaky at best. But to Chaney's early credit, he really did back his daughter, and part of the tragedy of the movie is what happens later.
Well, I mean, I think the change takes some time for everybody. I mean, if you look at the South, when people are things at race have never been worse than they are now. Yeah, they have been. There's been a there's been violence, there's been ugliness throughout our history, which is also interesting about Make America Great Again, because you're going, what year? You know what I mean? What year was it so great? But it does take time, and I think everybody realizes that.
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the one thing I would say, and I always say this on like Twitter or Facebook when someone starts saying racist stuff. I'm like, you have basically just admitted to me that you are the biggest loser in the world, because you're basically telling me the only asset you have is lack of pigmentation in your skin. You're basically telling me that's all you got. And I'm like, man, you must be a loser. So, okay, fine. We're talking about an overall evolution. But you would think like racists would realize it is the most loser position you could ever take in your entire life, that all you got is I have less pigmentation in my skin. And I think they should be treated as such, including Breitbart. Like, really? That's all you got? Well, that's like me saying I have a mole on the side of my face, therefore I should be CEO of Apple.
Yeah.
Like what?
But what about nationalism? That falls into the same thing, because you're born in a certain place in the world. You're supposed to think and feel a certain way.
I think everyone here agrees. I think you judge people by their actions. I think you judge people by their integrity. I think you judge people by what they contribute to a society. The idea that a random flag that they're holding up, or a random flag on the back of their shirt, I mean, come on. It's like, it's loser stuff. It really is. It's like, let's get to work as Americans. Let's deal with real problems that we have, like a falling apart educational system, an infrastructure that's rated at what, a D-, and more importantly, like the biggest challenge ever, global warming. Like, let's get to work on real stuff, as opposed to stop talking about like my hair's slightly kinkier than yours. Like, I mean, it's pathetic. It really is.
So you've made this change in the kind of movies that you make, at least the last two. Do you see yourself still going in that direction? It reminded me a little bit of Stardust Memories, when people were saying to Woody Allen what happened to the
take the money and run. Yeah. No, I'll still do comedies. I always love doing comedies. This was one that I just had been gestating for like years and years. I felt like this guy had a huge change over America. So I really wanted to go after it. The opportunity was there. But no, I love movies. I mean, I mean, one of my favorite movies in the last 10 years is Get Out. And Get Out is like horror, satire, social satire, race commentary, comedy. Like, I think genres are fracturing right now. So I'm open to anything for sure.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think there's been this, after so many years of, being a certain genre, now all of a sudden we're going in different directions?
I think those old genres, I mean, how long has film been around? Like what, 110 years or something? I think they were convenient boxes that the distributors would put them in. Life is clearly way more complicated than that. I think the world is getting crazier. So yeah, I can't wait to get into other stuff. I would love to do a horror movie. I mean, some of my favorite movies recently are horror movies like It Follows, Hereditary. I mean, there's so many good horror movies. So that's kind of what I'm half thinking about. Or there's another part of me that just wants to go back and work with Will Ferrell and just, laugh like a maniac for like 6 months.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm kicking around ideas. We'll see what happens.
I had seen rumors that you're going to do something with Jennifer Lawrence. Is that going to happen? Or
we have a script coming in called Bad Blood, being written by Vanessa Taylor, great screenwriter. I love Jennifer Lawrence, so we're looking at that as well. We just finished our first, well, not just, but a little while ago, our first season of Succession. And we're in the midst of getting our second one going, so I'm excited about that. I love that show.
That is one crazy ass show, and literally there was like, I guess years ago we would have looked like, oh, let's make up these things for a soap opera, but this one rolls like it's actually happening, right?
Well,
I mean, it feels that
because
way.
it is. I mean, look at the, the Redstones, the Murdochs, the Maxwells. I mean, we live in an oligarchical society right now, so it's so funny how all this stuff just feels natural.
Adam McKay, Vice comes out in theaters everywhere Christmas Day. This was really, really interesting, my friend.
A pleasure, my friend. Thank you for having me on.
And I'll see you next time. Okay, take care.